For many of us, as we usher in a new year, we aspire to be better, and we chart our course, all with an eye towards a successful future. And to a race car driver, that New Year's resolution is no different. Anticipation builds throughout the offseason, and here in Daytona, Florida, that anticipation is not only about the coming racing season, but also for the unveiling of the $400 million reimagining of one of the world's most iconic sporting facilities. Today, the 2016 championship hunt begins in earnest, and it will all unfold at the world's first motorsports stadium, Daytona International Speedway, the world center of racing.
As it has for over a half-century, the season begins anew at Daytona, where an array of stars from every major form of motorsport from around the world have come to strap into a sports car and measure themselves against the great track's greatest challenge. A race that demands everything car, driver, and team can give for 24 exhausting hours. Utilizing Daytona's high-speed, high-banked oval and the tight, twisty turns of its infield road course, racing non-stop from day into night and back into day in every type of condition imaginable, this is the ultimate test. Sacrifice and struggle loom at every turn, danger lurking around every corner. Make one mistake, deviate 1 inch, blink, and the result could be disastrous. Those who have met the long and unforgiving challenge represent a roll call of racing history, who come back year after year, writing some of the most exciting chapters in the history books of the sport, creating the legends that have made this one of the greatest races in the world. This year, who will earn the right to be called champion of the Rolex 24 at Daytona? The wait is nearly over. A new season has dawned, and history waits to write another chapter.
Nothing in motorsports ever stands still, and that is true of racetracks and drivers alike. For 53 years, drivers have returned to Daytona, not content with past results, but instead wanting more. They come from every motorsports discipline. From the world of sports car, where some of their names fill the record books. From the world of open-wheel racing and IndyCar, where a long race may be 500 miles, not 700-plus laps in 24 hours. And from NASCAR competition, but at the Rolex 24, the Daytona landscape looks completely different. In total, 215 drivers, 54 cars for 24 hours, and it all gets underway at 2:40. Welcome everyone to Daytona. I'm Brian Till, thrilled to be a part of another Rolex 24 and proud to be a part of this Fox Sports broadcast team. You know, they say that the more things change, the more they stay the same, and that is certainly true here at Daytona this year. The change, well, it has to be Daytona Rising. $400 million invested, resting on the shoulders of legends. What stays the same? The quest for these, the trophy and the watch. The watch, a Rolex, an Oyster Perpetual Daytona Cosmograph. You can buy one, but it is oh so much more special to earn one here in Daytona. You know, every year drivers change teams, teams change cars, and manufacturers change the car that they bring here to Daytona, but one thing remains the same. That's the level of competition and the level of talent behind the wheel. The Rolex 24 entry list is a veritable who's who of racing. Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Jamie McMurray, and Kyle Larson, the defending champions of the Rolex 24, return with Ford Chip Ganassi Racing. But the biggest change this year may be that Ganassi has also entered 2 cars in the GT Le Mans category. Making its racing debut is the new Ford GT, built to win at Daytona and Le Mans, just like it did 50 years ago. It's a new era for GT Daytona, which has a stunning 7 different manufacturers, including series newcomer Lamborghini with its Huracan. Scott Pruitt is tied with Hurley Haywood on the overall Rolex 24 win list with 5 and has made a surprise move from Ganassi to the 2-time and defending champion Action Express Racing for the Rolex 24. Pruitt will attempt to break the record with the help of co-drivers Joao Barbosa, Christian Fittipaldi, and Felipe Albuquerque. And one final but very important bit of change to tell you about, WeatherTech now headlines the marquee as series title sponsor. You know, the competition in the GT Le Mans class never fails to disappoint. And one thing is certain, Tommy Kendall is with us again this year. Tommy, you were a former Ford factory driver. You know how special it is for Ford to be back here at the Rolex 24, and that Ford GT has everyone talking.
Well, the battle in GTLM amongst the big budget factories has been raging for years, but it got turned up to 11 in June when Ford announced at Le Mans that they were bringing their new jaw-dropping Ford GT to the fray. A guy that's been dreaming about this for longer than 6 months is Executive VP and Chief Technical Officer of Ford, Raj Nair. Now, the battle back then was with Ferrari. The crosstown guys are Corvette. We all dream about storybook finishes. Who would you like to be banging doors with and head out by a nose, Corvette or Ferrari in 24 hours?
Well, you know, we're pretty focused on the win, so hopefully we don't focus too much time on what the order is behind us. So we're just going to focus on the front.
Well, you know, judging by the crowds around this car, this has been like standing next to Angelina Jolie. Thank you for bringing these two beauties to the fray. And Brian, the race they've already won is PR and headlines. They want to win the real one in 24 hours.
Very understandable indeed, Tommy. Very understandable indeed. Cool January breezes. The team and drivers getting prepared. If you can't be on the grounds with us here in Daytona, you're in the next best place.
Coming to Daytona is mind-blowing. You see the grandstands, this racetrack, so I'm on a high, actually.
It's like our Super Bowl starting at the beginning of the year.
You see the best of the best, and it's not just the best sports car drivers. To me, it's the best drivers in the world.
It's not often that you get such caliber of drivers in one small area.
I can't wait for the Daytona 24 hour to kick off.
It is a grueling, tough race. You never know what's going to happen, and that's part of the beauty of this race.
Welcome back to the Rolex 24 at Daytona, and believe me, there is no better place to be this fine Saturday afternoon. At the front end of the grid, we have the number 37 Nissan-powered prototype, and over here, it's fantastic. Ed Brown, Scott Sharp back from Europe. Fantastic to see you at the front.
Yeah, we're thrilled to be here, and it's a great view from up here. Hopefully we keep this all night.
Yeah, look in the mirrors. They're all behind you guys. Good luck. But over here, this is real big treat for all of us. Rubens, hey mate, really good. Great grid position, and of course you love this race, don't you?
I love it. I want to thank my wife for letting me race this, because we were supposed to be on a trip, but you know, the boys at home and my wife, is so nice to be here. It's really, I'm thrilled. Wayne Taylor Racing and the boys have welcomed me so much that I want to push to the floor.
It's fantastic. You probably have to thank her for the other 300 races as well, right? See you later. Okay, come down here with me. Of course, the big names on this grid as well, known to all the fans, are the Ganassi team. Here is the 01, great grid position, actually out-qualified with some of sort of like the junior drivers here. There's Brendan Hartley. Let's go and have a quick look. Andy Priaulx, hey mate.
Buddy, how are you?
I'm really good. Hey Brendan.
How you doing?
Good, so here you are, you're like the young whippersnappers. Okay, not you so much, but you. Youngness, great to be leading the charge for Ganassi.
Alex is officially retired, by the way, just sort of let you know, but he is starting the race. So.
Okay. Guys, good luck. There's a lot riding on this. So let's just head down here a little bit. In a minute, while all this is happening, of course, we have to have the standard in racing, and that is to hear the opening ceremonies for the 54th running of the Daytona 24 Hours.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, will you please rise and remove your hats as the Volusia County Sheriff's Office Color Guard presents our nation's colors. Please welcome Ronnie Barton of First Baptist Church of South Daytona to deliver today's invocation.
Let us pray. Our Father, we thank you for a beautiful day today. We thank you for all the countries that are represented at Daytona International Speedway today. Lord, this is a race of endurance and patience, just as it is in life. We pray for the safety of all participants. And Lord, we thank you for your love and your forgiveness. For it is in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and welcome Melissa Trumbull of Palm Coast, Florida, as she performs our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the pale perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
A look at our flyover today, courtesy of our United States Coast Guard with one of their venerable MH-65 helicopters out of Jacksonville, Florida. Coast Guard celebrating their 100th year of aviation this year. And now it's time to move upstairs to the last two members of our team, two gentlemen who are most certainly passionate about sports car racing, Greg Kramer and Calvin Fish.
Well, thank you very much, Brian, and hello, everybody. And it's an absolute honor to be a part of this team this year to bring the coverage of this remarkable series. And it's also a real pleasure to know that the guy I'll be doing it with all season long is 1990 Rolex 24 class winner, Calvin Fish. And Cal, there seems to be a theme developing for this event, change and uncertainty. And although the weather for this race now is supposed to be picture postcard perfect, that has played into it as well.
Well, this is going to be a great one, Greg. There's so many unknowns going into the race today. Certainly the weather threw everyone a curveball this week with 2 days of rain. But when you look at the prototype class, so many new exciting combinations, new power plants from Mazda and Honda that look great this week. And the big surprise in qualifying, of course, the Nissan putting that number 37 car on the pole. The big question mark is, can those three manufacturers survive 24 grueling hours here at Daytona? Can they beat the tried and proven reliability from both GM and Ford, of course, who won here last year with Chip Ganassi Racing? Now, the real wildcard entry in this group is the Delta Wing. Shown sensational speed, it's really ideally suited to the Speedway here at Daytona. It's led by Timmy Keene, their team manager. He's won here many times before with Chip Ganassi Racing.
And who is fastest in the lone dry session? The Delta Wing. So it's going to be interesting. Let's take a look now at the high-profile GT Le Mans category. The new cars coming in are sporting brand new technology to the class, and all the cars have vastly more aggressive aero.
Well, there's such huge buzz around the Ford GT, but let's not forget two other brand new cars in that class as well from BMW and Ferrari. All three of those turbocharged engines, but let's not forget they have to beat the tried and proven reliability from Porsche and Corvette. Porsche are the defending series champions. Corvette won here. They won at Sebring last year. They won at Le Mans. Both those camps are going to be awfully tough to beat this year.
And speaking of buzz, GT Daytona has just blown up into a true supercar showcase.
Well, it's spectacular. The cars are really unbelievable. GT3 machinery, you'd love to run one on the street. For young fans, they'd love to have that poster on their bedroom wall. It's going to add to the spectacle of the new WeatherTech Championship.
Truly, and of course, with all the change and uncertainty, experience is going to be playing into the scenario, I think, tremendously strongly. And you look at these cars, there's the Mazda. That car has had an immense amount of testing and has shown some great pace as well. So lots of things are certainly possible today. But what we need to do now is, obviously, we're going to be looking at some of the events that are going to be unfolding during the course of the race. There's people going for records, Scott Pruitt going for a record, and so much to unfold. Now let's take a look now at the class that is leading this one to the green, Prototype.
Prototype class. Technology meets speed. 7 manufacturers: Ford, Chevy, Delta Wing, Honda, Nissan, Mazda, BMW. Defining the laws of physics. Advancing automobiles to exceed speeds of 200 miles per hour. With one goal in mind: to be hailed a champion.
Daytona International Speedway, 54 cars lined up on pit road, divided between 4 different classes. They'll race for 24 hours. You can follow it flag to flag. Here's how the air schedule works out. Plenty of coverage throughout the day and into the evening, and then into Sunday. Here's how we'll take you to the checkered flag. Drivers and crews getting ready. This is an iconic event. It's a historic one. Talk about history. The Grand Marshal here this year at Daytona has made plenty of history. 9 times. Tom Christensen has won at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and now he is here at Daytona to give the command to get engines started to get this event underway.
It's that time. Please welcome today's Grand Marshal, sports car endurance race legend Tom Christensen, for those most famous words in motorsports.
Drivers, start your engines.
Sound that we have been waiting far too long for. This 54-car strong field coming to life here at Daytona International Speedway in preparation for the race that's about to unfold. And Cal, this race is being held at the World Center of Racing.
It certainly is, Greg. Let's take a trip via Google Earth to show you a closer look at Daytona International Speedway. It's located about an hour's drive north from Disney World, just off Florida's east coast. It's also a fun ride around this 3.56-mile track layout with 2.5 miles up on the famous high banks and just over 1 mile on the intense infield section. Key areas are right here, that transition off the banking down into turn 1, getting a good climb off of turn 6 up back onto the banking, and a good run through here. The bus stop chicane will set up a great lap. Maximum speed about 195 miles an hour down the back straightaway, and you do about 36 gear shifts per lap. Over the course of 24 hours, that's 26 to 27,000 gear shifts on the race car.
That's an absolutely amazing stat, obviously, and it's immense mechanical and also a physical toll. This is a difficult race to win, but there are so many ways to lose. And Chris Neville, we saw that play out late in last year's race in Prototype Challenge.
Boy, Greg, we sure did. Colin Brown and his core Autosport teammates in the number 54, they led the majority of this race in Prototype Challenge, but with 20 minutes to go, Colin Brown had contact with another prototype car in the infield. He limped that damaged car back up onto the oval, and within just a few minutes on the oval, that car erupted into flames. Colin Brown exited the car safely, but when he did that, he handed the win over to Tom Kipper-Smith in the number 52. And Matt Yoakum, problems weren't just limited to Prototype Challenge.
Chris, last year's GTD winner, the Viper, started last and finished first, proving you have to have a near-perfect 24 hours to score the trophy, unlike in 2015 when the fast Aston Martin from TRG ran in the top 5 solidly, led some laps, but an off-course incident only snowballed, knocking them out of a chance to score the trophy and spray the champagne. And when you look at the tremendous amount of rain we've had here this weekend that Calvin mentioned, any off-course excursion, that's only going to multiply your issues. Pavement is your best friend for the next 24 hours. Justin?
Well, you know what? There's many ways to get out of a 24-hour race, but the one you don't want is a self-enforced error. Now, to make it even worse is when you clobber your teammate. And last year, the big factory entrance from Porsche, the 912, driven by Earl Bamber, he went across the inside of the corner at turn 6 and straight across the grass, rejoined the track, and clobbered his teammate in the number 912, who's Mark Lieb. Now, I tell you what, they went on. Obviously, that was a very tough thing for the race. They went on to win the championship, but there is no doubt, there is nothing more heinous as a professional driver and more embarrassing than hitting your teammate. Jamie?
Well, and every once in a while, you can also miss out due to a miscalculation. You can have a near-perfect race, and that's exactly what happened last year to the number 10 from Konica Minolta, Wayne Taylor Racing. They had to make a late pit stop due to a drive time infraction. Get a different driver in behind the wheel of that car, and they missed out on their shot at a podium. Greg?
Very much, Jamie. And from Daytona Beach to Daytona Rising, the history book here is a glorious read. And the next chapter, the 2016 Rolex 24 at Daytona, the opening round of the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, will begin when we return.
Long-distance racing has changed a lot in the last 50 years, and the biggest difference is that the cars are so much tougher, so much less prone to breaking down. This has brought about a revolution in the way they are driven. Today, you brake hard, shift fast, push the engine. Years ago, cars took on personalities as the race wore on. Now they are tools, inanimate devices that carry their drivers around and around and around again. They are also like tiny homes, their controls as familiar as the layout of your kitchen, the atmosphere as humid as your shower, the instruments glowing as warmly as the embers in your hearth.
Well, as always, a huge thanks to Sam Posey for the poetry that he delivers for us on these broadcasts. Welcome back to Daytona, everybody, and we are looking forward to this one getting underway. The field right now is on their second pace lap. Take a look at our Continental Tire starting grid across the top of the screen. If you've got a favorite team or driver, find them there and follow them throughout the race. But right now, Cal, let's take a look at our WeatherTech.com keys to victory.
Well, the first is finding a new rhythm, Greg. There's a different dynamic with the speeds and performance of the new cars in the field and how they interact. Really dealing with the unknown. New cars create new problems. Focus for 24 hours. No lapse in concentration from the drivers, the crews, and last year we even saw it in strategy. And finally, you always need a little bit of luck.
Especially at a 24-hour race, luck plays such a key role. And we're about to find out who's got those covered here as the field making its way now. They always go right through that bus stop, just skip it on these laps, but they're going to be bringing it around and to green to start off 24 hours of racing here at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. And that very impressive run by Michele Lotion in that wet qualifying session has him up front. It'll be Pipo Derani, a young Brazilian driver. Neither of them have been here. They end up in the front row. That's impressive stuff.
It really is. Two rookies on the front of the grid. We got last year's pole sitter Oz Negri right behind them there in the Mike Shank Racing entry with Honda Power. And right alongside them, the Konica Minolta team. They want to redeem themselves from that penalty they had in the final hour of the race in 2015.
All right, field now under the control of Elotion, and they are supposed to have it right at 60 miles an hour. That is what they seem to be doing to perfection, and now they roll into the throttle. We are green at Daytona. The Rolex 24 is underway, and Elotion able to stay low and make it work. However, boy, the number 31, a Cameron dropping off just a little bit, and look at the move. Pipo Derani trying to do it from the outside, Cal.
Yeah, he's not going to have grip quite yet in those Continental tires with these slow pace laps, but he makes the move. Derani takes the lead.
Fantastic move, and look at right behind that is Oz Negri, who is in hunt mode early here, locking up just a little bit.
Just locking up that inside wheel. You get the weight transfer. We now look at the GTLM field coming to green.
And it was all Porsche at the front of that one as they have picked up the green flag. Look at that car sitting now in, it's number 100 of John Edwards. That's one of those new BMWs that everybody is excited about, along with those Fords as they head down now into the infield as well. That sequence at the start, Cal, it's twisty, it's busy.
It really is. We've got two Honda-powered cars at the front of the field. We're now looking at the two Ganassi cars with the Ford-powered defending race champions here. Dane Cameron in the 31 machine, screen right in the red and white number 31 Whelen Corvette Daytona prototype.
And we just saw the number 4. That was last year's 24 Hours of Le Mans GTE Pro winner. And the number 4 of Gavin trying to pick up a spot around the Ferrari. Side by side on the banking, the two Ford Chip Ganassi Racing prototypes going after it early. And Cameron tucks in behind in the Whelen Corvette DP.
Scott Dixon in the 02, the defending race champion here along with his teammates. Then you got Alex Burst, the veteran two-time Le Mans winner. First time here at Daytona, first time for Chip Ganassi Racing.
Boy, what a boon for that team to have that level of experience on board that car. But right now, Cameron is starting to feel a little bit of a draft, I think, coming up on the back of Verts in the 01.
Ford versus Chevrolet here on the high banks. Dane is trying to feel the draft here on that Ford EcoBoost engine. Came so close to the championship last year. This year, that 31 car is going to be really stout over the long season.
Yeah, they just got faster and faster with more and more wins as the season unfolded. Impressive stuff. So Derani hangs on to the lead. Negri now around Elotion into second. Then Elotion in the 37 third. Taylor in the Konica Minolta number 10 from Wayne Taylor Racing fourth. And the 02 of Dixon settles into that fifth spot. Looking back at GT Le Mans, it is Tandy and Frederick Makovecki running 1-2. But boy, John Edwards got a great start.
He really did. A superb performance in qualifying. Extremely treacherous conditions. A lot of rain, a lot of standing water, and everyone was just trying to keep it on the island, so to speak, in the wet qualifying session. But here we see these cars, the Porsches won here back in 2014. Brand new race car from BMWs. They run third and fourth.
Boy, and just behind that lead group just a little bit, you see that first of those Fords right there starting to try and make a move on the back of the Corvette, the two cars. And then keep in mind, folks, there is a Ferrari running in there. It carries a pretty similar paint scheme, but it is one of the SMP Ferrari running in that category. So keep measure of that.
There we see the two Ford GTs, the number 66, currently driven by Joey Hand. Ryan Briscoe, his Aussie teammate in the 67, right behind him. Ryan Briscoe won this event last year. He's with the Corvette racing team. What insight he can bring to this new group in terms of what it takes to turn a GTLM car into a winner.
Pretty fascinating what they're doing, and you can see that number 72, that's the Ferrari that we were talking about, and it blends in very closely. And talk about a gun behind the wheel of that car, Jimmy Bruni. They brought some serious armor to that one.
Yeah, they really did. Here we're looking at the battle. Ricky Taylor deep on the brakes. The number 37 car feeling the heat. And I think this is really down to the 37 car was on the pole grab, but we talked about it. Very different conditions to what we're seeing here on race day.
Yeah, it was absolutely monsoon-like conditions when they qualified. And obviously we talked about that one dry practice session. Obviously they got some dry running if they were at the Roar, which certainly helped. But right now, Ricky Taylor, he's got a lot of confidence in this car, obviously has driven it for a while, and he did a brilliant job in qualifying as well.
Yeah, he really did, and the key was just keep it together. Don't throw it at the wall in terms of just trying to be one grid position up. It's a 24-hour race. Yeah, you love to lead the field to green, but you're not going to risk the big day, and that's today in terms of the 24-hour race.
Well, and in those conditions that qualifying unfolded, obviously the downforce of a P2 car was going to be a great friend to have, a little bit better at this stage now. That car, the Corvette DPs, a lot of power and good straight line speed, and that's going to be fascinating too. Now we're going back into the GT Daytona category, and interesting run here. Here's a couple of the Vipers that are putting together a superb run. Of course, both coming from Riley Technologies, and remember, it was the number 93 Viper, the one that was only running the 4 Tequila Patron North American Endurance Championship races, that won it here, and they're having another very solid run in that don't mess with Texas paint scheme.
Yeah, having a great run. Two Europeans, Damien Faulkner and Jerome Bleekemolen, and they're starting drivers here today. And the Viper is tried and proven. We're talking about all these new cars, like the Lamborghini Huracan we're looking at right now, that leads the race with Mark Bassing behind the wheel of the Conrad Motorsport, number 28. But certainly the Vipers, they've got TC, traction control. They've got a lot of new electronics, ABS, so they've been revitalized, but they're not brand new race cars. But maybe that's what you want here over 24 hours, Greg, something that's already been here and done it before.
Well, with new things come reliability issues. Yeah, absolutely right. And certainly we're seeing some great pace now. And how great is it, first of all, to have Conrad Motorsports back racing in the U.S. Franz Conrad himself, a former class winner here at this event, and runs a great team. And Norbert Seidler did a brilliant job in qualifying. He's in that number 73 Park Place Porsche that is now slotted into the second spot. And he's feeling a little bit of heat right now from the number 30 of Sven Mueller, who is one of the Porsche junior drivers, and showing why right now.
Well, Porsche have won this event so many times, Greg. They currently run second through fourth, and they're going to be a factor over 24 hours. Here you see them running side by side, and everyone's feeling each other out a little bit. You know, a number of these cars are brand new. Certainly the Audi came out middle of last year, immediately won the 24 hours of the Nürburgring, one of the most arduous long-distance races in the world. As we see, I think there's Mueller there getting a little bit late down into turn one and losing the grip a little bit on that Porsche.
Yeah, it's interesting, too. And here is a good look. That number 11, that is a fabulous story. That is your defending GT Daytona class winners. Townsend Bell behind the wheel, teamed with his partner last year on the way to the championship, Bill Sweetener. But the guys that are running with him, Richard Antonucci and Piscopo, those are the two guys that led that team to the Lamborghini Super Trofeo North American Pro Championship. And that's a great driver lineup in that car. Antonucci did a lot of the development work on that Huracan. That's home.
It is home for those two drivers, and certainly Sweedler and Bell are going to be a force for this championship once again. They seem to be in the right place at the right time. They won this race back in 2014 and came very close to a championship then. Won it last year, but Townsend's a very savvy guy, as is Bill, and they've determined that O'Gara Motorsports are here to really make a statement. They've been very impressive. Great crew. Townsend ran with a lot of these personnel that he has, including a lot of the chief strategists, engineers back in his Indy Lights days. He knows what he's got in terms of a team.
And as we're taking a look there, let's move up back to the prototype battle. And again, Durrani continues to lead, but Oz Negri has run him down just a little bit in that Tire Kingdom entry from Mike Shank Racing. And they put a little bit of distance between themselves and Michaela Lotion to the tune of about 11 seconds right now. These two up front are running 3 seconds quicker than anybody else in the field so far in terms of their best times.
Just amazing race pace. It is simply sensational. As you said, Greg, they're running 1:39s, which is really fast lap times. Everyone else in the 42. So they're making a statement here in this opening hour of this race. Honda power, Ligier chassis on board here with Oz Negri as he comes down to the bus stop chicane. Really fast part of the racetrack, and then blasting up back through turn 7. As I said, a real key area of the racetrack. Around the banking here, about 170 miles an hour, and ultimately reaching your terminal speed of about 195 miles an hour. But in the draft, you may be able to grab another 5-6 miles an hour here, and that's what Oz Negri is looking for. He's looking for that draft on Durrani. He's trying to make a move here as they blend into traffic.
Ooh, he had to breathe it right there as well. Now looks down to the inside, but I think Durrani's got the preferred line. But this is interesting because these are the two Honda-powered prototypes that are out front and showing this tremendous pace early, and that's a new motor program.
It is. It's been boosted from 2.8 liters to 3.5 since last year. It's given them a lot of grunt. They're looking really impressive here. Look at that, how tight it was with the number 9 Stevenson GTD machine.
And we've only got 23 hours and 50 minutes to go, and they're racing like that. That's exciting stuff. And obviously, we see Oz now after that moment. He's dropped off a little bit. It just didn't have the line he wanted through there, and Pippo able to open that margin up again just a little bit. But as we watch, Pippo Durrani, an amazing story. The young rookie, only track experience here was at the Roar, and he is out front and leading right now over Oz Negri and the 37 of Michaela Lotion in the prototype category. In prototype challenge, Steven Simpson, Tom Kimber-Smith second, and Johnny Mollum, the pole sitter, sits in the third spot. Tandy, Makowecki, and Edwards in GTLM out front, and Bassing, Mueller, and Seidler lead it in GT Daytona here at Daytona.
GTLM class. Battling for dominance. Finesse. Style. Thrill. Speed. Ferrari. Porsche. BMW. Corvette. Ford. Racing at its finest.
And the defending 24-hour of Le Mans winner and the petite overall winner, Nick Tandy, is in the lead in that number 911 Porsche North America machine, chased by teammate Frederick Makowecki in the 912. They've opened up a bit of a gap over the 100 BMW from Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, John Edwards. But the guy who's on the move, clocking now up into the top 5, is the 66 Ford GT of Joey Hand.
Yeah, Joey's got up in the top 5. Ryan Briscoe in the sister car sits inside the top 10 as well, of course. But certainly Joey's a man on a mission right now. He's taking it towards the front. John Edwards, though, doing a great job. Ollie Gavin just got around him right there as we're now watching those cars on screen. So it's Corvette, BMW, and Ford right there. You can cover them with the blanket.
Just fantastic as they make their way now down through what they call the International Horseshoe here, which is the one to the east side of the facility. And then this kink, this is very tricky through this kink. It's very high speed, and you end up right about when you get to the track out point, you got to be straight and braking.
It's an awesome corner on the racetrack. When the car's right and the tires are good, you can dirt flat out in one of these GT machines. But if traffic is there, that obviously changes things. And if the tires are worn towards the end of their stint, that changes the grip levels as well. But this is really the first taste under race conditions to see how these cars really stack up against one another. We had a test here 3 weeks ago, and everyone kind of keeps what they have in their pocket a little bit. They don't really show their true hand. So right now under race conditions, we can see in the prototype class, those Hondas look so strong, but in the GTLM class, Porsche seem to have a little bit of an edge, but everyone else looks pretty close.
And one of the things that I think we should talk about a little bit here in the early going here in the GT Le Mans category class is they've got a really, really trick new Bosch scrutineering logger system. We'll tell you a little bit more about that. This battle, though, is very stout. As we're watching it here, that's the 62. You see Tony Vilander, and right here coming up is Jan Magnussen, and he is tucked right in behind the Ford GT. This is going to be an interesting one here. This is really going to tell what happens in the draft, Cal.
Yeah, it is, and Briscoe made a late move down into the braking zone for the bus stop chicane. These guys were teammates. They won together here last year, and now they're fierce competitors, as we can see. Look at the bonnet, the hood on that Corvette with the aerodynamic effect from the Ford right in front of him, kind of moving around.
Well, one of the things that's fascinating about this class now is you take a look at that Ford. That is a low-slung, prototypical looking.
Oh, delay there.
That was close. Something
There's a
happened.
problem, yeah. Certainly lost some drive there off of that turn for Ryan Briscoe. And the car has been so reliable in testing. Everyone said, how's it been going? And really, they haven't had many problems. But right now, Ryan Briscoe has some kind of drive issue. He may have lost one of the lower gears possibly, but right now he is not up to speed.
Yeah, let's take another look at it, Cal.
And this really catches you unaware when you're used to a car rolling through the middle of the corner at speed. Watch Jan Magnussen here in the number 3 Corvette. He expects Ryan Briscoe to get up to speed, and that was so close. I'm not sure if they just grazed each other, but good avoidance by Jan Magnussen, one of the best in the business.
Absolutely, and obviously there was a chance of damaging that massive diffuser on the back of the Ford. More importantly, maybe for Jan, one of those winglets on the front of the car that can just sort of ripple through the entire setup package on the car. He got away with one there.
One of the question marks with any new car is because the car's been so reliable, when something goes wrong, unless you've really had the foresight to think about what's going to go wrong with this race car, you've never tried to fix it.
Come to pit road. Yeah, 10-4, pit this lap.
I believe that's Mike O'Gara, team manager there for Ford Chip Ganassi Racing, telling him to get to the pit lane. Getting back to fixing the problem, Greg, I relate it to when I build a Christmas toy for my young daughter. When you do it for the first time, it can take you an hour. When you do it a second time, maybe 10 minutes. But for these guys, they may be experiencing problems for the very first time.
So we expect to see this car, the 67, excuse me, Briscoe, making its way.
Do a master reset. You can do a master reset.
Sounds like some kind of electronic.
Yeah.
Just asking him if he's done it yet.
Didn't work.
And there's your leader, Luis Felipe Durrani, goes by Pippo, and he is now coming in and through some traffic as we just saw Briscoe make the move down below the apron, indicating a move into pit lane. And Durrani being plenty aggressive here in the early going. Smart move by him there, not to try and just stuff it down the inside of that GT Daytona car, who may not have seen him coming.
Absolutely. He's just got to calm things down there. They've certainly got the pace. I mean, this is a statement right now. Those Honda-powered cars that run 1-2 are some 2.5 seconds quicker than the rest of the field, and maybe 3 seconds faster than most. Let's get down to Jamie.
I was just listening to that radio commentary as it continued, and Ryan did try to do that master reset, and the team was talking to him about that did not work. So the word of the team was it is stuck in 6th gear. Electrical gremlins are the last thing that you want to have at the start of a 24-hour race. They're the hardest ones to find, sometimes the most difficult ones to fix. So it's going to be a long day for the 67 crew, guys.
So that's why he didn't have the drive off the corner when he came down the front straightaway. It wasn't changing down. He is stuck in the top gear that he went into the corner with, and when he came off the corner, he's got no acceleration.
And no way for Mag to know that, and obviously, so he was just pure reactive mode, and again, incredibly close.
When we talk about the keys to the race, that's the luck. You know what I mean? You didn't do anything wrong. Suddenly the guy's like parked it in front of you. You can tear up the front end of a race car, and those are the brakes you...
-1.
I think he was just saying it's showing it's changing on the dash, but it's actually not, obviously. And there is the Delta Wing right there. And folks, third, Catherine Legg started last in prototype because they didn't even go out to qualify, but they said, don't be fooled, we've got speed.
They have been phenomenal in testing. They chose not to qualify, as you said, but I talked about the Hondas having about 2 seconds over the rest of the field. Once Catherine got up to the 3rd spot, she's now run a lap in the 1:39 range as well, so she seems to be the only one with the same sort of pace as the Hondas right now.
And in theory, they use a lot less fuel, less tire. Boy, if they can maintain this kind of pace, and as you said, keep it clean, we could see something happening today.
Well, as they say in the UK, it does everything it states on the tin, Greg. Do you know what I mean? In terms of half the weight, half the drag, and that really shows around this racetrack.
Yeah, I mean, this car is about as perfectly suited to this track as you can imagine here. And Catherine is, she's just been grinning this entire weekend, knowing that they've got a great car here. No question about it, working through some of the GT Daytona Vipers. That's the number 33 from Riley Technologies. There you see the 02 as it's working through the field as well. And of course, we're going to keep tracking that as the defending race winner. That's a big story right there, though, too, for the Visit Florida racing team. Hey, you know, sometimes you talk about consistency, you know, through the seasons. They've made a radical change, as has this car, the 55 Mazda of Tristan Nunez. This team is running a brand new engine package. Oh, but a problem it looks like for the 70 as it suddenly just slowed dramatically, Cal. That's Tom Long.
Well, we talked about the new combinations. You said a new engine.
Shut it off, Tom. We got oil pressure. Shut it off. Shut it off.
New 2-liter turbo motor, the MZ 2.0T has been designated, and they were very bullish making the switch from the diesel-powered Skyactiv diesels from last year's entry over to these gasoline-powered cars once again. They've showed a lot of speed in testing, and they thought they had a great shot today.
See what happens here. Looks like he got off the corner okay.
Then suddenly just loses it. Look at that, the number 5 car, the defending series champion, Joao Barbosa. That was close.
What? There it is again.
Well, you're just dealing with very experienced sports car drivers as well. We've seen Jan Magnussen and Joao Barbosa be totally on top of their game. We're in transmission, possibly. I thought initially it was oil pressure. Maybe it's an oil pressure in the gearbox, not the engine as I initially thought.
All right, so, well, our first full course caution comes at 20 minutes into the race. Durrani still leading in the number 2 Extreme Speed Motorsports machine. Oz Negri and Catherine Legg in the Delta Wing up to 3rd. Welcome back to the Rolex 24 at Daytona, opening round of the 2016 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, and we continue under caution. There has been no pit activity other than that for the number 67. Here's how the field sort of susses out right now, and as you can see, Catherine Legg making a big move already up into 3rd at this point, so a good run there. It is Steven Simpson in the 85 leading in Prototype Challenge over the 52, last year's winner of Tom Kimber-Smith, and Johnny Mollem. And Nick Tandy, Frederick Makovecki, no change there, but Ali Gavin now up into the 3rd spot. And there we've got both of the Ford Chip Ganassi racing machines, the EcoBoost Riley's down in pit lane, taking advantage of this early opportunity. And I think we also saw the Delta Wing coming, Cal.
Yeah, and I think everyone's going to come. You're halfway through a stunt, gives you a chance to get a read on tire where there hasn't been a lot of dry running, and you're halfway out of fuel, so you wouldn't really roll the dice any further, so this is not a surprise.
As always, great pit work by the Ganassi squad, and pretty much everybody in the prototype ranks seems to be taking advantage of the opportunity. So while that cycles through, we're going to step away for just a moment. So when we go back to green, we can bring you as much of it as possible. So we'll see you back here in just a couple of minutes at Daytona. Right as we come back, the pits open up for GT. They are in en masse. Let's get down to Justin Bell.
It was an explosion of activity and energy here. I'm with the 911, 912 Porsche teams. They came in order. They were on track. This was our race leader as he pulled in the pits in GTLM. The 911 looking absolutely clean and pure right now. 4 new tires on the car. Full stop and he goes. This is followed hotly by the 912. The Ferrari 63 managed to split them down the pit lane. This is always going to be, for the next 24 hours, a race in the pits.
Obviously, we've got the 2 classes running here together with GTLM and GTD cars, so it's very busy and hectic there on pit lane. See the Ford come out. Looks like they may have split the Porsches, possibly as the 67. Obviously, major issues there. Taking that one back to the garage to get in there a little bit deeper. Obviously, someone's first pit stop of the year did not go well. Wheels come loose, we assume, from a car on pit lane.
Yeah, you can see that the wheel just bounced off down the road there as the BMW pulled away. I couldn't see which one it was. I think it was the 100 car as he shot off. Pardon? Sorry, Calvin?
Maybe he clipped a tire as opposed to it falling off a race car.
Maybe clipped a tire, yeah. It was very difficult to see. The BMW team don't see that that bothered by it. It's obviously not theirs, but it's someone's. And of course, that's why the pit lane is a very dangerous place to be, as everybody is leaving now. I can see one of the Lamborghinis heading their way back onto track. And Calvin, I just want to add, really, when you think about it, the way the front runners in each class are running so hard, almost you'd feel with no care to the wind. I reckon that is the only way to go, don't you, after all the running they've been having? Push as hard as you can, go as fast as you can, and then collect the data, analyze it, and modify accordingly from there. There's, you know, in the classes, the way we see them run now, it is a flat-out exercise.
Yeah, I mean, these races just have such a different dynamic to back in the day when I ran them. Even you, Justin, you've run more recently than I, certainly. But these cars are built for speed, and they're built for speed for 24 hours. 67 car having problems. 66 car seems to be running very strong. Good, clean pit stop. We'll see how they stack up here after the they hit the stripe one more time. I think they may have leapfrogged one of the Porsches, possibly.
Well, when he pitted, Joey had hauled that car up into 4th, so Absolutely, a great charge in the early going by that car. So while one of the cars struggling, the other one showing all the speed and promise, at least in the early going.
And we talk about, you know, being ready for the first race, those first pit stops of the year. I spoke to Mike O'Gara from Chip Ganassi Racing, heading up this GT program. He said, we have just been so under the gun in getting this new car ready. We have not been practicing, you know, our pit stops like we normally would in the off season. So that was a good, clean pit stop for those guys. And talk about resources. They've got 4 cars here this weekend. They've got about 150 personnel, 94 CGR, Chip Ganassi Racing employees here. So that is a massive undertaking, running the 4 cars, the 2 prototypes, as well as the 2 new Ford GTs.
And we're watching here, of course, Pippo Durrani, who got to the lead fairly early. You surprised he didn't pit?
I am, because basically once you get the wave around, he's going to have a stack of prototypes full of fuel right behind him on fresh tires. But it's early days. There's a change of the upper management on the team. Robin Hill is leaving that group and moving on to the new Lexus GTD program, which is announced this week. That's exciting, going to come online middle of the year. Scott Pruitt is going to be leading that, believe it or not, along with young Sage Karam, who he shared a car with over at Chip's Enterprises in the last couple of years.
And interestingly, we are coming to the green. The lights out on the Audi pace car. So they're going to bring him to the green. So Durrani actually has a few cars that are going to separate him from the rest of that freshly fueled prototype pack. And boy, one thing this guy has, and he's lighter now. If the tires are in good shape, he's got speed.
He's got speed. I mean, he was sensational in the World Endurance Championship that runs globally, essentially same cars, but runs on a global platform last year in the P2 category. Same cars he's driving here today. He's at home in this car, and he's found his feet very quickly here at Daytona.
And here we go. Pace car is in, and Durrani building speed, and at the same time looking to build a little heat, it seems, in those tires. Maybe clean them off a bit, but a big pack now of the prototype tail squeeze play on Ricky. Oh, he had to check up and leg, trying to go around the outside of everybody.
That's amazing. Dane Cameron there put the car to the outside, and Ricky suddenly was getting pincered there in the middle of some GT traffic. He had to let him go in that black number 10 Konica Minolta team. Big story there this weekend is Jordan Taylor, his brother, is not feeling well. A little bit of a lock up there. The Zoolander car.
Yeah, Tommy Dreesy, that was
one machine.
Yeah. But able to keep it on track as they whistle through the kink. Again, lots of side-by-side action. Seeing some of the prototype challenge cars that always put on some awfully impressive racing. And that, yep, that yellow 85 car, we've been hearing they may be having a little bit of an issue, although Steven Simpson for JDC Miller Racing has been able to keep that car up in front of the class. But everything the reports we're getting is it may not be completely healthy. Last year's race winner in the 52 PR1 Matheson car, Tom Kimber-Smith second, and Johnny Mollem still sits third. And Johnny, in qualifying in those wet conditions, actually set the fastest time of any of the prototypes on his way to his second straight pole in class. That was a remarkable achievement in those conditions.
It really was a great performance by Johnny Mollem. He knows this track very, very well, and good to be seeing him on almost a full-time basis here with that team this year, as we understand it, with various drivers co-driving with him throughout the course of the year. But right now, Durrani Lee's got a healthy lead. It looks like Negri has now cleared all of that traffic. He's back in the second spot, but again, he's going to have a bit of a deficit in terms of track position, but he's full of fuel and got fresh Continental tires on that number 60 machine.
And speaking of machines, there's the 66 of Joey Handboy. After that pit sequence, he is now up into second and is running down the 911 of Tandy.
This is first and second in GTLM. Porsche won this championship last year. What a year Nick Tandy had, Greg. Just won everything in sight and just really has come alive the last couple of years as he's come on our scene. He ran with the Falcon Tire team, won Petit Le Mans a few years ago, and ever since then, boy oh boy, he has been on our radar. One of the fastest GT drivers in the world. When you put him behind the wheel of a prototype at Le Mans, what does he do? He goes out and wins.
Pretty remarkable, and another great drive here up into third in the class right behind it. It looks like the second of the Ford GTs. It's not. It's the SMP Ferrari of Jimmy Bruni has jumped up into that third spot in class. And Jimmy, talk about one of the best drivers in the world of GT racing. I think he's probably the most heralded of all the factory Ferrari drivers.
Oh, he is. This guy's a machine. He's an absolute animal behind the wheel of one of these GT machines. And as you say, I think the Ferrari boys must have looked like the look of that Ford GT when it was revealed, because that paint scheme is almost identical. And I tell you what, Joey and Mr. Bruni have a little bit of bad blood that dates back to, I think it was 2012 when Joey won at Sebring. Bruni tipped him around in the final few minutes of that race, and Joey was not happy about it.
And don't forget that yellow number 3 sitting 4th in that queue, Jan Magnussen. That's the car that won here.
Joey
last
Hand for
year.
the lead.
Joey!
He peeks to the inside. Tandy doesn't give him the lane. Traffic up ahead. Bruni's thinking about things as well. And sitting in the 4th spot is Jan Magnussen in that yellow Corvette. Porsche, Ford, Ferrari, Corvette going for the lead.
Doesn't get much better than that for sure. Yeah, I think Joey had the speed, but realized that might not be on it with that group of traffic right in front of him here. But boy, he's got speed. There's Bruni.
Look at that side by
Joey to the outside.
He pulled the draft early and popped out. Runs alongside. He's going to cross the stripe in the lead. Can he hold it down into turn 1? Ford leads on their debut.
And up and around the outside he goes of the GTD Turner BMW. And Joey Hand now has a car between himself and the number 911 of Tandy. That was a beautiful piece of driving by Joey Hand. Now Tandy needs to get by that BMW. Does. Nice job opening the wheel up, letting that group now come through. Then the Ferrari. And then Magnussen. And that little stack up has brought the number 912 of Frederick Makovecki right back into the mix.
Yeah, it certainly has. And this class is going to be unbelievable. You're talking about some of those beautiful race cars, some of the best race teams in the world, and the driver lineups this year are unbelievable.
Well, we used to say last year that you know, any one of 8 cars, 7 or 8 cars could win it. Now it's any one of 11 or 12 cars can win it, and they are so close. They really have this this rules package working, and this is some fascinating racing, and what a season it's going to be.
It is, and when Ford announced this program, Chip Ganassi Racing had to go out and hire drivers, and Mike Hull said, we need assassins. We want to go out and win.
I like that. Closers. The kind of drivers you need to get after here. And again, here, this is just working some traffic now, but doing a nice job. Slides through underneath the Aston Martin, heading down into the bus stop.
One of the keys to the race, we talked about it, Greg, rhythm. Find that rhythm. These GTD cars this year have ABS, so the cars are able to get really deep into the brake zones. Talking to some of these GTLM drivers, they said the good drivers behind the wheel of the good GTD cars, they're taking the cars in super late into the brake zones. Normally where we would eat them up, suddenly we do not have an advantage.
Well, that's those new regs you're talking about. Much, much better aero than they used to have, no question. And it just makes it awfully challenging and entertaining as a result, working through the traffic here. And here we go. Boy, again, Joey had to get out of it just a little bit, carried more speed in than the prototype challenge car, had to breathe, and that allowed that group to come right back to him again.
It can be frustrating because you may have a better lap time underneath your belt, but one of those prototype machines, the PC machines, have strengths in other areas of the racetrack. Very frustrating. You see there, Joey gets boxed in. The 911 goes back to the front.
Or does he? Well, watch it. Yep, he does now. I thought Joey might just try and ramp around the outside. Now, more traffic coming up. Tandy opts to go to the outside of the 007 Aston Martin. Joey looks underneath Cal. Now has to follow suit and drive through. So Tandy back on point. And here he goes through. So now the battle is rejoined. Lots of time left in this one. Obviously, we're going to step away. Here are your 4 class leaders.
The level of competition for 2016 in the WeatherTech IMSA series is going to be huge.
It's really an international field this year with drivers and teams coming over from Europe.
You see the best of the best, and it's not just the best sports car drivers. To me, it's the best drivers in the world.
We got a lot of brand new cars, a lot of new technology, a lot of cars that have never been in America before. There's no time to rest. You can't sacrifice 1 point throughout the year.
It's going to be a battle all the way through. It's a tough championship, but I love it.
So do we. It's absolutely remarkable. And this is the young rookie, Pippo Durrani, driving the number 2 Extreme Speed Motorsports Honda, and he has yet to pit. He's one of the very few cars that hasn't pitted yet, but his margin, Cal, is only about 7 seconds clear of this battle, which is furious right now. Oz Negri in the number 60, and Catherine Legg is looking.
Yeah, she is looking really feisty right now. She is one of the most aggressive drivers out on the circuit. She doesn't give an inch, and right now she's got a car. Watch this thing accelerate. It cuts through the air so efficiently and has shown great top speed here during the test here 3 weeks ago, and certainly in practice as she now tries to look to the inside. Doesn't have the downforce of the P2 machine, but she takes it inside of Oz Negri. Great move. She's up to second.
And Oz, of course, is a mighty savvy veteran and realized it's early going here and not to fight too hard on that one. But look at Catherine. Once she gets back up on the banking, that thing is just gone.
It just cuts through the air so efficiently. That low, that little downforce area on the front of the car really just cuts through the air very effectively. Just a brilliant design, and we're now seeing it come to the forefront, and they've done a lot of work in terms of the reliability. Here looks Bruni. He's putting the pressure on for that second spot on Joey Hand. Joey Hand goes high. Magnussen tucks it down low as well. He's going to pick up a draft on the Ferrari. Which lane will he take? Will he go with Joey? Will he try and tuck even tighter to the inside? Down the back straight. Traffic up ahead.
Yeah, decision time, and it just kind of stalled on him right there, didn't it, because of the traffic. It's going to be interesting here. Smart move there by
Magnussen.
Yes, realized
you called it, Greg.
Of course, that one.
He knew that Joey had to tuck it back in. He can't stay out there forever, so he gives up the position to Bruni, and Jan is thinking of the big picture. He's won so many of these big races. He knows what it takes. No point in pushing it and trading paint here in the first hour of this motor race.
Well, and if you get trapped out there, you know Makavecki's just going to go right down underneath while you're parked as well. So, yeah, you have to do what you have to do. But now you can see this is going to just drive him crazy here, and that is Bruni's going to try and thread the needle, or at least thought about it.
Inside.
Joey had to check up, though, didn't he?
And all of these cars have different performance abilities under braking with the downforce and the grip from the tires, the wing cars. It's unbelievable.
Multi-class sports car racing, I've said it before, it's high-speed chess. Every piece moves at different speed, and you have to be way ahead of the game reading that board. And look at Gavin threading the needle and almost trying to do the outside move on teammate Magnussen as he went by the pole-sitting number 73 GTD car.
He says, this looks like fun. I want in on this party. Ollie Gavin and Tommy Milner, they won Le Mans last year along with Jordan Taylor. But they've had a very quiet couple of years, and they're hoping to turn things around here on domestic soil.
This is what everybody was thinking would happen, and it has in fact happened in GT Le Mans. This is what everybody was talking about. This fierce level of racing, and that number 72 SMP Ferrari is playing the game as well. And now you take a look. That is a huge move by Townsend Bell. Remember, they started in 9th, Cal, and Townsend Bell just went around Mark Messing and picked up the lead in that day glow, I don't know, green-orange or green-yellow machine.
Whatever it is quick.
It's very fast indeed from O'Gara Motorsport.
2 Lamborghini Hurricanes leading this full field of GTD machinery. You see Bruni there, gets a little bit bottled up. He carried more speed than that PC, that prototype machine, in front of him on the exit of the bus stop, but he wasn't able to utilize it all. Got balked a little bit. Look at this stack up. Meanwhile, up front, Nick Tandy continues to lead for Porsche.
I think that's the 38 of James French in that prototype challenge car, who's been very quick, had a lot of poles last year. And now Joey gets that draft, swings to the outside. He's made this work before. Will Bruni be able to stay put? And Bruni is, just because, again, traffic, Hal.
Oh, these are some of the top guns in GT racing. I mean, Bruni is recognized as maybe the GT master. And great to see him here. We're not going to see him on a full-time basis. His teammate from Europe, Tony Vielander, will be here full-time this year, running in that red number 62, red Ferrari for Risi Competizione. So that's a real boost to the championship. The Finn, he literally does fly.
Well, I'll tell you what, too, that is a great story for Risi Competizione. They got that car quite late, but they said they had the sense. I mean, Dave Sims, Rick Mayer, the engineer, they knew what the game was. They did a lot of the work in terms of getting the components on the car while it was still at Michelotto in Italy. I think that's paid huge dividends.
It really has, and just shows the experience and the poise of that group to get the car literally delivered to them in Florida at the beginning of the week. They tore it apart when they got here on Tuesday, went right through it. It qualified very well, and here it runs right up in the top 6 or 7.
And as we're watching Joey Hand battling in the top 3 in GT Le Mans, the 66 Ford GT, Jamie, what's the word on the team car?
Well, the bodywork going back on this number 67 Ford GT right now. It was the mechanism inside the gearbox that actually shifts gears that was the problem. So the team had to take the car apart, put it back together again. They're going to be back out on track in just a couple minutes. Ryan Briscoe is staying behind the wheel.
Well, of course, they're going to be a few laps down, but in this race, anything can happen. And plus, you've got to run this. This is a huge extended test session looking ahead to the rest of the season.
Yeah, and what I said earlier, Greg, is when you have a problem, it will take a while to do it the first time. If they have a problem with Gain or with the sister car, they will have learned a little bit. That information will be translated over to the other side of the garage for the other team members should they hit issues further down the road.
Knowledge is golden, no question about it, as is this level of racing. Spectacular stuff. Nice move there as Vilander just dove down underneath Frederick Makovecki and moves up into the top 6. Fabulous racing unfolding here at Daytona. We're going to step away for just a moment, but we will be right back to the Rolex 24. Welcome back, folks. Moments ago, this car back on track. The number 67 was being pushed back on track, started up, and will be back on track. And also, another big development as that car heads out on track. Into the pits comes our overall leader. That's Pippo Durrani, and he has stopped. Catherine Legg picks up the lead here at Daytona.
No driver change. Fuel and tires are only as what the radio communication was. 4 working personnel allowed over the wall. You are allowed to refuel and change the tires at the same time. You're not allowed to do that over in Europe and at Le Mans, of course. Good opening stint for Pippo Durrani.
Yeah, 53 minutes he was able to get out that tank of fuel.
That hands the lead to Catherine Legg. Delta Wing leads at Daytona. What a cool story.
That's an absolutely fantastic story. And I'll tell you what, I had the honor when she made her move to the U.S. and ran in the Atlantic Series. I did the announcing as the PA announcer for that series. You could see it right away that this gal had it. She was special and also was just one of the nicest human beings you could ever meet. And it was tough not to cheer for her when she would come out and run. And, of course, became the first to ever win in the Formula Atlantic Championship. So just fantastic stuff. So nice job by Catherine Legg. And obviously another car that's generating a lot of buzz and interest here is the Mazda prototype team. And I think Justin Bell is standing by with John Doonan.
Yo, just coming, I managed to get John down off the pit box. John, one of the normally smiliest, happy guys in the pit lane, stress on the face because a lot of optimism about the new gasoline engine in the Mazda prototypes. You've been fast from the minute you got out at the Raw. A little technical setback there. What was it? We've been speculating. What has been the problem?
Well, thanks, Justin. First of all, the 70 car's got a transmission-related issue, so the boys have it up in the air. They're trying to sort that out now, but one of the key parts of the Mazda brand is we never stop challenging ourselves to be better, and the last 3 years have been about putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. We've worked on the chassis, we've had the talent behind the wheel and behind the pit wall, and now we've got that final piece. So very excited about the pace, the performance. I think we can fight for race wins and championships this year.
And of course, you talk about the driver talent. The energy amongst that young group of guys, of course, was palpable at the Raw. For them, they knew they had the chassis underneath them, but now they had the power plant suitable to this kind of racing. But they are young. They are, you know, there's a lot of drive, literal, and energy there. What's it like for you as it's sort of like the daddy, I won't say granddaddy, of this sort of roaring talent?
Well, it's a little bit like an adult daycare center, but candidly, the Mazda Road to 24, this driver development program we've had, I've known some of these youngsters since they were in go-karts, and to see them now achieve the opportunities to race in the Rolex 24 and put Mazda back on the podium, it's very rewarding for our brand. We care about the sport at Mazda, and that's just one part of it.
But we'll let you get back up to the pit box. But guys, it was amazing. Walking around this morning, driving in, with so many Mazda fans here. They've been waiting too to see this car's full potential and brand's full potential unleashed.
Absolutely, and Justin, this is a very special day for them. Literally, this day, 96 years ago, was the day that Mazda came into existence. So their 96th birthday, pretty amazing stuff here. And here we've got some pretty great racing action that's unfolding. Take a look here. That is the 31 wheel-in car of Dane Cameron sitting in third, but Scott Dixon in the race-winning car from last year, the 02 Ford Chip Ganassi Racing EcoBoost Riley.
Yeah.
Looked, paused, looked again, and he thinks he might be able to do it, Cal.
Yeah, he got in there really deep on the brakes. Dane tried to take the braking in very late. He didn't quite hold the line, so Dixie thought about going to the inside, but suddenly that Ganassi 02 car has come to life here in race trim. They just kind of plotted their way through the testing here this month. Didn't really show impressive speed. You see a little wiggle there coming off the corner as Dixie tries to put the power down. So GM versus Ford here, and then you see Ricky Taylor right behind them, and Joao Barbosa now up to into the top 6. So we talked about the new combinations, Delta Wing being the wild card. It leads. Negri with that new 3.5 liter Honda engine runs in second. And then it's Action Express number 31 in third, and their sister car, the defending series champions, sit inside the top 6 as well with GM power.
And there is, again, Scott Dixon. And talk about, I mean, one of the world's best drivers, one of the world's best road racers. All you have to do is look at his achievements over the years. In front of him, Dane Cameron, I think one of the world's future superstars. It's going to go a long way. But you were just talking about that number 5 car. Joel Barbosa certainly fits in at that level of talent. But one of the stories in that 5 car, we talked about it at the top of the show, that's the car Scott Pruitt's going to be getting into and looking for that record-breaking 6th.
That was a big surprise because no one really knew whether Scott was going to be part of this Ford GT program. It was kind of on the fence in terms of whether he would, whether he wouldn't. Ultimately, you know, Scott was offered a seat at Daytona in the prototype. He looked at the lineup. He was unsure initially. Then he went and committed to Action Express. Then when you see what the lineup was in the 2 with guys like Alex Wirtz, Andy Prio, Brendan Hartley, maybe it would have been a wise choice to stick with Chip Ganassi Racing, but certainly go with the defending series champions. 2-time series champions is not a bad choice either when he's going for that record 6 overall win.
And they have won it a couple of times too. So
yeah.
I mean, they've certainly got the capability and the talent on that team. And again, the whole mission in the early going here is stay in touch pretty much. And they've got a group that is certainly capable of doing that. By the way, that number 100 car, that's one of the BMWs. Obviously, that's a car that apparently hit some pit equipment and had to serve a little bit of a stop and hold in pit lane. It's done and is back racing again. So we'll keep an eye on that. Fabulous racing unfolding in all of the classes. Up front, overall leading at Daytona, it is the Delta Wing in the hands of Catherine Legg. We'll be back.
I thought the competition level in 2015 was tough. I think 2016 is going to be even tougher.
With the new GT3 machinery, we should see a very competitive, very balanced racing from the entire field.
And there are going to be more competitors in that class than any other class, and that just means anything can happen.
You know, one of the closest, most competitive GT classes in the world right now.
It's really going to be difficult to tell where everyone stacks up until we get the season going.
Well, the season is now officially going, and I'll tell you what, these Lamborghinis are looking pretty impressively quick here. That was Spencer Pompelli, and he is driving one of them, but this is the number 48, Paul Miller Racing, making a big switch, obviously. He'd been in that Audi camp for a long time, moving over to the new Huracan, and Bryce Miller now has picked up the lead in GT Daytona, and obviously this is where, after the Falcon Tire team went away, Brian Sellers has ended up in this program now. This is a pretty serious program, Cal.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough combination. Brian Sellers alongside Madison Snow for the year. Bryce Miller leading this race. He's going to be doing the endurance races for his father's team. And look at Jeff Siegel. He's really wringing the neck of that Scuderia Corsa Ferrari there. This is the team that won the championship last year with Bill Sweedler, Townsend Bell. They've moved over to O'Gara Motorsports and the Lamborghini Huracan. But Christina Nielsen, who came so close to that same championship last year, has switched over to this team, and she's got a former GT champion driving alongside her. Balzan, they're going to be quick.
No, and that's a season-long deal. They're going to be, I think, a real threat for the championship. Here's another of the big stories. In the 3rd spot now, that is the Stevenson Motorsport colors on an Audi. They have stepped up from the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge into GT Daytona and are running very strongly. Robin Liddell, Andrew Davis, who won the championship in Grand Sport last year, on for the full season, having a good run early here.
They're having a good run. I think if you had to pick a favorite for this race with so much new machinery, I think it had to be Audi. They went out with this new car last year and won the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring. They finished on the podium at Spa. They won the 24 Hours of Dubai just a few weeks ago. So it's proven. You know, a lot of the other cars don't have the same sort of mileage in race conditions on them.
And here is the Gas Monkey Viper, the number 33, in the hands of the blisteringly quick Jerome Bleekemolen. Always a real threat here. And this is another, now this is a little different scenario, isn't it, with the upgraded car to the GT3 spec right now.
Yeah, certainly that Viper is kind of revitalized. It gets all the electronic gizmos that GT3 machinery has allowed in terms of ABS brakes, traction control. It's got a different rear wing on the car this year, so more downforce. So they're trying to get everyone on a level playing field. But this is our leader right now in the prototype challenge car class, and he's been doing a great job all day long. Steven Simpson behind the wheel.
He's just been a rocket since he joined this category. I remember, I think it was at Lime Rock last year, he had a chance to win that thing overall, putting in a great drive here. And speaking of traffic here, Catherine Legg now is gathered up in some traffic. She's bit clear right now by some 7 seconds of second in the prototype class. But this is where you get into this mix of the different classes here, and especially a car like the Delta Wing that doesn't present as big a profile. Every once in a while, things get a bit sketchy, and you've got the GT Le Mans boys breathing down it here.
That was really tight there.
Yes.
Joey Hand had to tuck it to the inside there, one of the GTD cars, and had to get up on the curbing. Ollie Gavin's a man on a move. He's now got it up to the 4th position. Up to the 3rd position now, right behind Jimmy Bruni. So that number 4 Corvette is flying right now. But here comes Joey Hand. Seems like that Ford really cuts through the air very effectively. He's had good straightaway speed here today.
Ooh, close concert stuff. And, you know, by a whopping 10th of
look at this. That is the moment you don't want to have. Yep. You just cannot afford to believe that that car is seeing you on its flank. And Joey really showed up plenty of patience there in deciding not to go for the gap.
Well, and that's something that obviously isn't something that race drivers normally do well, but the pros do. You've got to be patient in the situation. Knocking a dive plane off upsets the handling, the front tires. I mean, it ripples through. You've got to keep that car as clean as you can and to get to the end. So, Joey, I think the big picture thinking right there.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of the most dangerous parts of the racetrack through the bus stop chicane. You get tagged there and you get out in that wet grass. A lot of rain here earlier in the week, Greg, as we mentioned in the open of the show. If you get off in the grass, you're going to go for a ride, and you don't want to be fixing that new Ford GT.
And Gavin has the number 60 of Oz Negri, 2nd overall, looking down the inside here. And this is where it gets very, very interesting. One of my favorite parts of this type of racing is the fact that you've got some of the world's best drivers, period, in the GT Le Mans cars. You've got some of the world's best drivers, if you will, in the prototype cars. And these GT Le Mans guys, they don't just move over and let you go. They will let you go when it works for them. And this is that game of chess I'm talking about. It's fascinating to watch these guys at this level. And yeah, good point. We're just looking about it here. 22 hours or so yet to go. Look at how dirty that windshield is. Now, these guys are running, they have big tear-offs, literally. You just peel right off of that windshield, so they'll be able to deal with it. The one thing I did want to mention quickly is that Gavin, by a 10th of a second, his fastest lap in GT Le Mans right now. And Oz checking up again wisely into the bus stop. Not quite able to get around
a little bit.
Yeah.
You really float the car through with a lot of speed on the entry to the bus stop. But the key is get on the power early, getting good exit speed. That sets up your lap. That sets up the terminal speed. We're coming down to the highest speed part of the racetrack, about 190, 195 as they cross the stripe here at Daytona.
All right, just ride and ride here. And the action continues to be fierce. We're going to step away for just a minute here. But when we come back, we have a special guest here in the booth. We'll look forward to bringing that to you as well. Great stuff. Welcome back, everybody. The Ferris wheel, boy, that is one high swing ride as well, unfolding on the infield. It's a bit of a carnival atmosphere on the infield here, absolutely packed, and the racing living up to the billing. Right now, Catherine Legg is just driving away, almost 10 seconds to the good now over Oz Negri. Dane Cameron sits in 3rd. That GT Le Mans battle continues to be fierce, and I told you we had a special guest coming into the booth. It is none other than our Grand Marshal, Mr. Le Mans himself, Tom Christensen. Tom, welcome to the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Pleasure to have you here. And it must have been a lot of fun for you to be honored like that and be down on that straight at the front of this great field today.
No, it's fabulous. I'm very humble. I'm very proud to be here. And what an event, what a day. I mean, fantastic weather, and the whole grid, all the teams, the drivers, incredibly. Really, you feel the whole build-up of the race, and it's just lovely to be here.
You've been retired now for a year, Tom, but does it whet your appetite when you're down there on the grid and you hear all those engines burst into life again?
Certainly, once a race, always a race. I mean, as I said to the drivers at the drivers' briefing, I really envy them. They go into a lovely race weekend. You can see that determination, the grit, all the things, the team spirit of so many great names which takes part on the grid. But
a little bit nerve-wracking for you to be down there, be ready for a field to come to life and not have an opportunity to chat with Cal. That was kind of a big thing for you at Le Mans.
Yeah, that he didn't ask for this time, so obviously everything has to come to an end. And obviously,
I still haven't forgiven you from last night. The Rolex dinner giving me grief about my putting.
Yeah, but Calvin, it had to come out. Short putter itself and short putting so many times. I mean, you're wasting other people's time around the green. Your game is good, but your putting is it's really, you need to work on it.
A lot of people have a bucket list, Tom. Do you have a bucket list still to race at Daytona one day?
Nah, it was lovely at the dinner last night, and obviously so many great people within and passionate people within the sport. I mean, it was the words which happens with McNish and myself at the stage, and suddenly Chip Ganassi said, "We will sign you guys straight away," and it's very tempting to be. Yeah, there was a deal done, and of course it's lovely that these things happen, and it's nice to be remembered after things even has come to an end.
I think that just shows the respect that everyone has for you, mate, over here in US racing. You've been here before. You raced very successfully here. 6-time winner at Sebring, as well as your 9 victories at Le Mans. I think you loved your time here on American soil.
I loved racing in the States. I love coming here, and we're actually living in Florida now at the moment for 6 months. But I mean, racing here is very good. I love the paddock. I love the atmosphere. I love the integrity that people puts into what we do on these races. I love the oval circuits. The road circuits in America. I mean, good old Road Atlanta, Sebring, obviously, Laguna, Ohio. I mean, when you go around all these circuits, Road America, I mean, it was really a wonderful time in my career. And of course, when you're here, you're always tempted. But I'm sure one day you make a comeback as an old man. The Rolex 24 would be a fitting venue.
You know, Le Mans, of course, is Le Mans, but the U.S. tracks seem to be a bit more old school in a way.
Yeah, I love it.
You know, than what you see, and obviously, you know, Alan McNish, you know, would say it too. You know, Road America, I need to be here. I love this track. It's a track where a driver can truly make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's more about, obviously, it's very important that you look at safety in general and the circuit limits and the way you do it. But basically, on the old school circuits, is natural built. It's built, some of them from dirt racing. I mean, even like a small circuit like Virginia Raceway. I mean, things like that. It's built from the natural, and then put asphalt on later on for many of them. And this gives such a great character when you are getting a car, and you really feel the flow when you're driving cars on these road circuits. And then obviously when you put a wheel wrong, you are up on the grass, and that's going to bite. And I like the consequences about these things. I think we have to be careful with a little bit with the European circuits about track limits, because drivers, you don't really respect the wide line in that sense, and it bodes for a little bit if you put a wheel off. And I like the dust coming up. Maybe I'm old style, but you know that you're just on the edge, and I like to see that. That's what we want to see as drivers, and as fans wants to see that too, I'm sure.
There is a limit, and that's the nice thing about it. Our leader, obviously, folks, Catherine Legg, down into pit lane, and Matt Yoakum is there.
And she was enjoying that 10+ second lead. Now the car in the pit box, she felt like the grip had gone away a little bit sooner than had been expected. So engineer Catherine Crawford, she called for an air pressure change, shuffling the pressures to try to make that grip last a lot longer on this Delta Wing. Windshield complete, no drink bottle. She's good to go. Chris.
And Matt, we're having some action down at the Ganassi pits too. Pretty much all the prototype leaders are coming in for tires and fuel on these stops. Scott Dixon right here. The 01 car just behind the 02 here in pit lane. Gonna do fuel and tires on this stop. And we also saw the 10 car come to pit lane. That was Ricky Taylor handing over to his brother Jordan Taylor. And the interesting thing about the 10 car is just this week they added Rubens Barrichello to that team because Jordan Taylor has been under the weather. I checked with Wayne Taylor right before he came in. He said Jordan feels much better today. They don't think his illness this week is going to be an issue throughout this race.
Yeah, that's been a building story here, Chris. Great report on that to let it know. Tom Christensen, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Hope you get out there and find a great place to watch the rest of what's going on.
See you at Winner's Circle.
Absolutely, Tom. Thank you so much. As the pit stops continue to cycle at this stage, and we're watching everything unfold. Obviously, going to be changes in the prototype categories, and that means we are coming to the end of our coverage of the Rolex 24 on Fox Sports 1 for today. But stay tuned right now for the FS1 UFC Fight Night pre-fight show, to be followed by the FS1 UFC Fight Night prelims. And don't forget the main event, the Fox UFC Fight Night, Johnson versus Bader at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on your local Fox affiliate. For now, we we are headed over to Fox Sports 2 for continuing coverage of the IMSA WeatherTech Championship and the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona. We'll see you on FS2 and Fox Sports Go for the next 6 hours. Welcome everybody here to the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Continuing coverage now on Fox Sports 2 of the opening round of the 2016 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. We've just had a big bunch of pit stop sequences. Catherine Legg pitted from the lead. She had opened up a sizable margin by the time that happened of almost 10 seconds. The Delta Wing is flying here at Daytona. As we have hoped for, the GT Le Mans battle has been intense, although now Nick Tandy has been able to work traffic and open up a little bit of a margin, but it is the Ford GT of Joey Hand sitting in the second spot and the Ferrari of Gianmaria of Jimmy Bruni sitting in third, but back into the lead, cycling through after they got a little bit out of sequence, really, Calvin, is Pipo Derani in the ESM Honda Ligier.
Well, he's just been flying here today. He's held down the fastest race lap at a 1:39.1, and just the Honda power and this Ligier chassis has certainly proven to be very suitable here to Daytona. And Negri's flying. He's running in the third spot. Catherine Legg still runs in the second spot for Delta Wing. First of the Daytona prototype, Dane Cameron sits there in fourth. Scott Dixon, defending race champion, rounds out the top 5.
Pretty amazing what we're seeing unfold here, and it really, you take a look at the fast laps, Cal, the Delta Wing and the 2 Honda Ligers just seem to be slightly, at this stage of the race anyway, in a slightly different league.
They are, and there's no way you're going to chase them down with the pace that you're showing right now, so you just got to think this is a 24-hour race. Let them guys run out there at those sort of speeds and see if something happens. So just stay on the lead lap. There's a long way to go. If you go down a lap with the caution procedures, it's very easy to get that lap back with the wave bars, so you can't force the issue right now. You've got to keep tweaking on the race car. That's what it's all about, really, tuning the car through 24 hours, trying to make it as good as it can possibly be for the last couple of hours shootout tomorrow afternoon.
Here's a look at the 0-1 right now, and it is off pace. Possible problems here for this car. Lance Stroll now behind the wheel of that machine, and Cal, yeah, it's definitely got some sort of an issue.
Well, he's just gone out there for a couple of laps. Remember at the test he had a quick spin, a little bit of contact on cold tires, so I'm sure right now he's being very cautious in terms of not making a mistake. And he's got Max Pappas on the radio spotting for him here today. He's got a lot of experience just talking him through the early laps here in his stint.
Jan Magnussen brings the number 3 Corvette Racing Velocity Yellow machine down. Ooh, a little bit of a problem there. The car in front, some of the pit equipment, and he had to back it up and drive around it. A little bit of a cost of time.
60 kilometers an hour here on pit lane, which equates to about 37 miles an hour.
Definitely better to cost yourself 2-3 seconds of getting around it than hitting the pit equipment, because that is going to be far more costly in terms of penalty.
This is the most dangerous corner on the racetrack right here, pit out. Cold tires, so easy to understeer straight into that wall. Some of the best in the business have done that over the years, and anyone who's new to Daytona will be talked about that numerous times come race time.
I think that's exaggerated here, because that little strip of grass is still very, very damp, so you get into that, you're going to go. And there is the 66. Joey Hand now has picked up the race lead at this stage, and as he completes that lap, makes the move down into pit lane, and does a nice job getting right down to that limit, Cal.
Yeah, good double stint here for Joey. Certainly shown that this new car certainly seems to have the pace of the other cars in the field. He took the lead there for a couple of laps, and even though the sister car, the 67, has had some kind of gearbox gremlin, the 66 car seems to be running strong. Looks like Joey is staying in the car. Chris Neville is on the spot.
Yeah, Calvin, it's been pretty chaotic down here in pit lane. Pretty much leaders in all the classes coming in and doing tires on this stop. I checked in with team manager Mike O'Gara right before this stop. He said this is the first time they've been checking tires, and really the car balance has been fantastic. Only in like the last 20 minutes, Joey Hand saying, hey, the car's starting to skate around on the racetrack, but overall the balance good.
Boy, I tell you, just watching this team work, and I mean, they've, you know, as you talked about, Cal, they've done lots of testing and the like. Well, these are the first pit stops so far this season they've done in anger. Little issue.
Yeah, you can see, guys, an issue at the left rear corner, trying to get an angle on it, but it looks like possibly a brake line is loose back there. So maybe on this stop here, something I don't know if a wheel hit that brake line or what, but you can see that it is hanging loose, that left rear caliper. So obviously not the start of the race that either Ford GT wanted.
Yeah, the 67 car is back out there and just turned the fastest race lap in the GTLM class, so it's back up to speed, but many laps down, and Joey was definitely in the mix, but this is going to cost them a lot of time.
And into the pits comes our leader in GT Daytona. That is the Garage Monkey number 33, Riley Viper, in the hands of Jerome Bleekemolen. And had taken that car, worked his way up to the lead, Matt Yoakum.
And he is in, and interesting enough, they were chasing mechanical gremlins with this car. The first dry track run for the 33 was actually when they took the green flag. They took this car over to the Continental Tire Series garage and drove it around there. They had a throwout bearing issue. They changed that, also changed another component. They felt like they were good to go, and the car was very solid so far. A little bit of work going on in the cockpit there while they're finishing refueling the 33, the teammate to last year's winner in GTD.
Yeah, just taking a long time for that big thirsty V10 to fuel up here. Boy, it's taking an unusually long amount of time, Cal. There it goes. Nope, stalls it.
Go.
Bill Riley on the horn there. A little bit of frustration in his voice there, lost precious seconds, but it's early days. Just got to get back into your rhythm, put it behind you, and move on.
And that is what they're doing here at the Ford Chip Ganassi Racing Ford GT pit stop, working on that car as well. We're going to step away here. We'll be right back with more from Daytona.
At Daytona International Speedway, the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Luis Felipe Durrani, Pippo Durrani in the green and black prototype, the number 2 at the top of the screen. Leading overall right now, Catherine Legg being shown in second, then Oswaldo Negre. And that number 2 machine has been flying since the drop of the green, Calvin.
Yeah, I mean, the pace that those two cars had, the number 2 car and the 60, was simply sensational. About 3 seconds a lap faster than the rest of the field. They literally took off. They were literally dialed in. Question mark is, Brian, can they keep it up for 24 hours? But right now, very impressive. Certainly Mike Schenck now has a year under his belt with the number 60 car. ESM, they took this car at Spa last year, about a second race of the championship over with the World Endurance Championship. They've learned a lot. They're going to be switching to Nissan Power over here. Oh, excuse me, over there. But they're running this Honda Power for the 24-hour race and doing it to good effect right now.
Well, we talk about Mike Schenck's team running in third, but they don't really mind, at least right now, seeing that number 2 car up front, because when Mike Schenck Racing goes to Le Mans in June, it will be that chassis, the one that you look at right there, that they compete with in Le Mans. They will take that chassis over, and a collaboration with Onroque and Oak Racing, and they'll run that Ligier chassis. That helps Mike Schenck not have to take all of his equipment over there. And they've said, look, in the past, this chassis has run very well. That's exactly what we're seeing right now. Brian Till and Calvin Fish with you in the booth here at Daytona.
Yeah, I think it's a wise move because they're still trying to win a championship over here, and to really disrupt your preparations with the domestic races to go over to Le Mans. This is a great option for Mike Schenck, and he's been building to this for a long time to compete at Le Mans. Last year they went over there to really observe and see what they needed to do. They realized what they needed to do in terms of hiring a driver from over there. Laurent Vontour ran this car that leads the race right now last year for Ligier to good effect. He's their third driver over there, along with Os Negri and obviously John Pugh.
Understand that the number 93, the SRT Viper from Riley Motorsports, will get a penalty from their last pit stop, leaving with a hose attached. And, you know, we talk about things that help you win the race. Well, it's things like that that help you lose the race. You come back in, you've got to serve a penalty on pit lane. That's going to be a long stop and hold, I would think, for hitting pit equipment. So you can't make a mistake. And talk about not making a mistake. I think maybe one of the wisest decisions we've seen all weekend long was the decision not to qualify the Delta Wing. They sat out in really adverse conditions and said, look, we're not going to be that far back at the drop of the green because we're going to line up by class. Let's just avoid the wet weather and show them what we've got in the dry. And right now, Catherine Legg is flying.
Well, Timmy Keane has so much experience, the team manager at Delta Wing, and he just said, we don't need any part of this mess. I mean, we've got a good race car, it's fast. What cares if we start on the pole or from the back row of the grid? And in hindsight, you can see it was obviously a wise choice. They got a very fast car. They showed it in testing. A little bit of an adjustment since then in terms of performance, but nonetheless, it's literally flying. I mean, it's really designed for a racetrack like this, Brian, with the long straightaways. The thing accelerates like no one's business because it just cuts through the air, minimal drag with the front end design of that machine.
And when you look at it and you realize there's no rear wing, well, they get a lot of the downforce from the bodywork, but that lack of the rear wing helps with drag a little bit. You get good straight line speed. Battle in GTLM has been spectacular since the drop of the green. You see the number 4 Corvette right there, and the BMW right behind him. The BMW all brand new design. And wait till the nighttime and watch the paint scheme. The graphics on that number 100 BMW, they will be spectacular, lighting up in the dark. John Edwards behind the wheel of the 100 right now.
Yeah, the car had run really well in the opening few minutes of the race, and then after the first pit stop, I think it was really tight down there at Team RLL between the 25 and the 100, and unfortunately the 100 clipped a wheel or some pit equipment and got to serve a drive-through penalty for that. So got on the back foot a little bit, but there's a long way to go, and the car seems to be really responding well, Brian. At the November test that we had here at Daytona, the drivers were not happy with the drivability of that turbo engine, with the handling of the car. Michelin developed a new tire for them. That brought the car to life. They did some work with the power plant as well, and suddenly there's a whole new ball game here this week as they held down some of the fastest times in testing.
Well, I know you and Greg talked about this at the beginning of the show, but what you see right there is a bit of the tried and true being followed by the brand new, that BMW M6, a brand new design, and another problem for one of the 4 GTs. It is the 66.
Car runs so well, took the lead here in the opening couple hours of the race. Chris, what's going on with the 66?
Well, just minutes ago, Joey Hand left pit lane. The team, it looked like they had buttoned up the work on that left rear corner, and I checked in with team manager Mike O'Gara on that. He said, yes, it was the tire changer. He just knocked that line off that caliper, and it took a little while to change the end of the quick disconnect line there. So that's what was taking so long. Right now, what's going on the racetrack, I don't know. I'm running back down to Ganassi to figure out if still an issue with that brake line, but obviously that was a long change.
I mean, nothing looks down on the back, but this is not good. So Joey's going to pull it off the racing surface down to the inside. It's good that he's out of the way, but what that tells me is that he's lost drive completely. He's going to have to rely on safety workers to get him back into the garage area.
Fire, Mike. You want me to fire back up?
Joey relating the information back to Mike O'Gara. Now it's fired back up again.
Joey Hand doing what he can with his Ford GT. He'll take it back to pit lane, and we'll be right back to Daytona.
For us, everything we talk about when we say Daytona, we say big and bold. And I have to tell you, I think we blew that out of the water with the new project. Everything is big and bold, and the reaction from our fans, from the sponsors, from the drivers, wow.
It's unbelievable what they've done. It's such a cool facility, and there's really no other place like it.
I mean, everything's just so much bigger.
The addition of so many elevators and escalators and just concession and this and that, and it's very cool.
I mean, you know, 200 some odd thousand people can sit in all those seats. I mean, it's unbelievable.
60 million pounds of concrete, 1% of the annual output of U.S. steel is in this project, and then you think about the 100,000 new seats, concourses that stretch 9/10 of a mile long. This is truly a modern marvel.
It is absolutely stunning. Tommy Kendall now in the booth with me. Matt Yoakum, Chris Neville down on pit lane. I'm Brian Till. And wow, started 2 years ago, Daytona Rising did, and it has turned into this, and it is absolutely spectacular. It's pretty special from outside, but you were just down in the bowels of it trying to get up here into the booth.
10-4, it's like a little city. The parking, even for us, underneath the grandstands as we see leaders in the pit lane.
Delta wing there on your left. Catherine Legg behind the wheel. Looks like she's going to stay in the car. You see the number 2 to the right. Pippo Durrani behind the wheel of the number 2. Looks like a driver change going on, and everybody sitting in the Motorsports Stadium gets to look at this. I want a problem for Catherine Legg.
Looks like might have stalled.
Throw it back or something. Come on, guys.
And here's this moment of indecision. You can see Catherine Legg, and
the jump battery.
You heard Timmy Keene say, come on, you got to do something. Either pull her back or get the battery on. And now another problem for the 0-1 out on course.
Let me know what position behind the pace car you want me to be. Just go behind it. He's gonna.
So you see Lance Stroll in the 0-1. He's trying to figure out where he needs to be behind the pace car. That was Lance on the radio saying, where do you want me to be? Safety car came by, and now he's picked up the pace and kind of begun to drop in. But here's a kid incredibly talented, but he's a sprint racer. He's a Formula Car driver, and he's been thrown into one of the biggest endurance events in the world. And this whole safety car, multi-class racing thing is new to him.
There you see baby face there. And so, yeah, all that stuff being picked up by a pace car, et cetera, is all new. And these are the kind of things, though, that hopefully it doesn't trip him up too much. Obviously, it's early in the race. But these are the kinds of things that if they happen at the wrong time. And same thing it goes for the Delta Wing. Delta Wing having a great showing. This car, you know, came on the scene with such a splash, so unusual, and then it had lots of reliability, and so people don't really consider it that much on the race weekends. But the speed they're showing, I sat with the drivers yesterday when they were kind of bringing Don Panos up to snuff, and they said, well, all three drivers when they got out of the car in that practice session were P1. We know that it goes a long way on tires and a long way on fuel. They've clamped down on the fuel of this car, but if it was given the same amount of fuel as everyone else, they'd be going way, way, way into the distance. So, but it looks like they said the car is more reliable, it's faster, and the team is better. And so they like their chances.
Of course, the only problem with it is, you know, we talk about it being lighter and so on and so forth. It's lighter because some of the parts are made lighter. Obviously, it doesn't have a rear wing. We talked about that. A lot of the aerodynamics come from the little splitters that are just in front of the rear wheels. You see them kind of taper in on a triangular shape towards the chassis, and if you get up on the curbs and break one of those off just underneath the word America, you can see that black fin type device that helps bring air underneath it. If you break that, you can lose up to 20% of the downforce. So you've got to be careful with car placement, and that really has been the knock on the Delta Wing over the last year or so. It's just a bit fragile. Now the Delta Wing paint scheme looks a little bit familiar there, Tommy.
It does. That old front engine LMP1 car. Here it is running. Well, that was at Le Mans. This is at Sears Point. Look at how far back they used to call this car, and the one with the roof a Batmobile.
Don Panos always an innovator, always looking for a different way to get things done, and that was really where...
I'm guessing there's no beige in his house.
Yeah, exactly.
He likes to stand out.
That's where the concept for the Delta Wing came from. So prototype cars have been to pit lane, and now GT cars will stop in the WeatherTech Sports Car Series, just as in the Tudor Series last year. The cars stop on different laps, prototypes first, and then the GT cars. So you'll have GT Le Mans and GT Daytona in at the same time.
You see them staying all to the one side of that dotted line. That's called the fast lane, and there's usually not this much room between the fast lane and the pit boxes, but they were told, even with all that room, explicitly to stay inside that lane. Chris Neville, what do you got?
Well, Tommy, the reason for this caution was because of this car, Joey Hand in the 66. He was having engine problems on the racetrack. Talking with the team, they're still trying to figure this out. They're looking at a lot of telemetry coming off the car. They said it looked like the kill switch was on, and Joey was telling them that the engine is just missing. He can't tell if there's something going on with that kill switch, as the team is telling him, but he says it also feels like the TC is just activating all over the racetrack. So the team really still trying to figure out what's going on with this car. Currently 6 laps down, and right behind him, the 67 car, Ryan Briscoe, still behind. Well, that car spent 15 laps in the garage because of that transmission issue. I guess it was a small pneumatic actuator in there on the upshift that needed to be replaced in that car.
Joey Hand back underway. Also heard some radio transmission that perhaps whenever Joey activates the traction control is when the gremlin pops up. There's plenty more to come from the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Still under caution, the second full course caution here at the Rolex 24. Scott Dixon leads overall. It was Joey Hand in the Ford GT, the number 66, with a problem. It lost fire on the racetrack. They got that refired, got it back around to the pit lane and worked on it a little bit, but now understand that he may have some type of clutch issues. And we had some great shots when they were out there on the racetrack. Corvette right there with the BMW, and we also talked about with the Ford GT. The Corvette little bit more of the tried and true. And when you look at those brand new cars, the BMW, the 4GT, the 488 Ferrari, which one do you want to show up here to do this race in, Tommy?
Well, I mean, obviously odds are with the Porsche and the Corvette with no major new components or systems. Obviously, they're always trying to review them. But and that 4GT, the way it was running in the first hour, it was impossible for me to imagine that they could have everything under control. Even though they've been working on the car and they're the best in the business working at it, there's no substitute for race tested. And so, I mean, it's early still, and I don't want to count them out, but it's certainly not going exactly according to plan yet. They do have a lot of miles on the car, but you look at these other guys. For example, when BMW brings a new car, they've been building GT Le Mans cars before. And when Ferrari brings a new car, they've been building GT Le Mans cars before. Now, the one thing in the favor of the Chip Ganassi 4GT, that powertrain is pretty much what's in that leading DP car. I talked to the guys from Roush Yates, and they said it's the way it's packaged and all the configuration is different.
Well, and that's just it, isn't it? I mean, what Joey's talking about is electrical issues, and so perhaps different wiring looms for that type of car running through different places. You never know where the rub points are going to be. You never are quite sure until you get those kind of miles on it. And why is it? They never fail in testing. The gremlins always pop up when you drop the green flag. And here, of course, in the WeatherTech Sports Car Series, it's the Super Bowl that's race #1 of the season.
Well, and for example, they've got a lot more miles on those chassis than the new 48 Ferrari. They've been building GT Le Mans cars. That car just hit the ground in Italy. Risi was over there for a shakedown test. They put it on a plane. They couldn't even put it on a boat. Put it on a plane, flew it over here. So, it's just it could happen. That kind of thing could happen to Corvette. Could happen to Porsche. But
and it has.
Odds are that a new team would experience more of that.
You think back to the Roar and Corvette problems with a fire there. I had a leaking fitting in the fuel system in the back of the car, caught on fire. Had another electrical issue, a fire, when they were in the garage. So it really, I guess that comes down to that lady luck issue. When are you going to have it? Because everybody's going to get bitten at some point in time. Looking for the green, and we've got prototype challenge cars up front. That is not at all uncommon after pit stops. And the green comes out, across the line they go. We're racing again at Daytona. And this is where it gets busy. 4 different classes of cars. They're all going to converge down into turn 1. Jordan Taylor in the black prototype swings wide around the outside. He's behind the wheel. We talked about him earlier being a little bit under the weather. They need to get him in, get some laps, and get some points for Jordan Taylor in case he begins to feel a bit worse and can't complete this. And look at this, the 5, the Action Express entry is off. It's been raining here for days, and finally the contact is made, and it's one of the more experienced drivers in the car, Joao Barbosa. 2-time defending champions in class. Barbosa tried to go wide around the outside. You get out there to the gray, you lose grip.
You can see he's looking to the outside, and he's got them all locked up, cold tires.
With all the rain we've had, you don't see a lot of mud, but that grass is really, really moist, and you're just not going to have any grip on it. Throw in some sand because we're down here close to the beach, and Barbosa doing a good job trying to stay off the brakes, steering as little as he could to try to get some grip with the front end, but it just wasn't going to get turned.
Yeah,
or stopped in time.
Didn't nose in there too hard. These cars are pretty darn sturdy. I don't
right back out on the racetrack, but yeah, it looked okay. And with a 24-hour race, he hasn't lost a lap, and now a problem down into the bus stop. It's the 60 and the 2.
So 2 cars that were going at it early.
Johannes van Overbeek behind the wheel of the 2, and John Pugh in the 60.
Hit the rear.
Not sure whose radio that was. That's on board with John Pugh.
Looks like the nose is loose. No, maybe not.
That was the radio actually from the 2, Johannes van Overbeek, saying, sounded like he said it just hit him in the rear. So, see, we've got a replay. Up at the top of your screen, you see Van Overbeek. No, it was John Pugh that gets into the back of Van Overbeek, gets congested in the braking. This is on board.
Yeah, he didn't go in too deep, but it looks like he started to get them locked when those guys really started backing up in front of him and tried to cut to the outside, but couldn't clear.
It's just one of those deals. right after a green flag. Probably don't have temps and pressure yet in your tires. You get the stack-up effect, all the different braking levels that are available down there, and you can see considerable damage to the left front of that Mike Shank Racing entry. And if you go back to Petit Le Mans with the problems that they had there and the multiple incidents, this team doesn't need to be buying any more bodywork. Understand that the 16 car is going to have a penalty, stop and hold for over 3 minutes for an improper wave by. That is the Change Racing Lamborghini Huracan in the GTD category. Improper wave by on the safety car when they were out there during that last full course caution. So that's going to take 2 laps away. And officials very strict about how that works, because you can gain a tremendous amount if you figure out a way to game the system. They're going to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Basically, the idea with wave buys is so that with multi-class racing, the chances of getting the lower classes caught laps down when a yellow comes out just through random luck, twists of fate, they're trying to eliminate that. What likely happens is they split the cars that are eligible for a wave buy to the right, the other ones to the left. They're supposed to commence wave around. It sounds like the chance car was not supposed to go around and did, and they said the onus is on you to know if you're eligible, not on them.
See that damage? It looks like, especially with the materials that are made these days, it's not like back in the days of just fiberglass. The carbon fiber material on these cars very stout, even though cars well over 190 miles an hour in the fastest sections of this racetrack. But it's not going to be aerodynamic, because obviously the headlight lens cover is now gone on that left side, so the air is not going to flow around it smoothly. Check in with Matt Yoakum in the pit lane.
And Joao Barbosa is ready back in the 11th position now. Chief engineer and strategist Ian Watt told him the grill from their monitors looked good, no debris. Let him know if there was indeed any vibrations. And Joao reported back that no vibrations. Everything seemed good on the 5 cars, so they may have dodged a big bullet here.
It was hard to tell, Tommy. Obviously, he's got brake lock up on the right side, and you see smoke. It almost looked to me like it was the right rear that was locked up and not the right front, which is odd, because that tends to make the car loose, but it stays very straight ahead. You can't get a definitive look at it because we don't really have a clean right side look. But
I think that was smoke coming out of the tunnel, to be honest with you, from the front.
It stayed so straight, you would think it was the front.
And it's most likely, when you don't have grip transferring weight to the front, then you don't get as much efficiency out of the front, and they tend to lock. So while he tries to deal with that, sort it out, and make up some of that ground, we're going to go down to the pits with Chris Neville. He has one of our manufacturer reps.
Yeah, and Tommy, right now the Stevenson Audi leading the GT Daytona ranks, and Aaron Keating, general manager from Audi Sport North America, supporting all the customers here this weekend. All weekend long, we've just heard about all the strength in the GTD category. 7 different makes here. How much pressure are you feeling this weekend?
I mean, the competition's good for us. To be honest, we're the one car that's been proven to be in this 24-hour race in Nürburgring and in Spa, so we're feeling good about the competition, and the more the merrier.
Now you've got 4 cars in this race, and Audi here supporting all of those customers. And the one thing I've heard from all the teams is they're just amazed at the technical support that they're receiving from you guys. How big of a challenge is that?
It's not much of a challenge for us. I mean, again, our customer racing program is very large globally, and it's really important for us to be close to these customers, make sure that they have the equipment, the tools, and everything they need to be able to win these races.
Well, and right now they are leading GT Daytona.
Obviously, Stevenson Motorsport, very, very good organization. A lot of talent there from an engineering standpoint, a team management standpoint, driver standpoint. They've been in GT racing before. They won the championship in the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge Series last year, but to step in this very deep pool and right off the bat be up front, hats off to them, but hats off to Audi as well. Calvin talked about it earlier, that new R8. Pretty spectacular piece.
Yeah, it's some pretty high-level defections, where you have Magnus going over to Audi, and you have, of course, Stevenson, a long time GM operators. And I actually talked to Erin briefly at the LA Auto Show, and she was chuckling about her biggest challenge was trying to decipher the accent, Stevenson's accent.
I love it. There's a good look at the speed differential between a prototype challenge car, a GTD car in the Audi, and then the Ford GT and the GT Le Mans category through the banking here at Daytona. Ford GT has some legs.
Yeah, it does. I actually got a text message from Dan Binks. They're seeing quite a bit more trap speed out of that car, and it looks like it. I mean, the car was running right up with the Porsche, the Corvette, and the Ferrari in that opening stint.
So it looks like they've gotten the problems on the 66 worked out. They are back up to speed, but obviously have lost time in doing that. But this is a 24-hour race. You've been here, Tommy. You know what it takes to win this thing. Perseverance. You keep your head down. You just keep soldiering through.
Yeah, I mean, these are the first race laps this car has ever run, and so obviously they came here to win. That's pretty clear. And with their pace, they obviously they're in the frame. But let's remember where the program was announced. Le Mans is really so. All the information they're getting now, real race laps, real race data here. Sebring, they want to win every time out, but Le Mans they want to have all their.
You might as well be talking about the 02 car right there, because that's the same thing for Chip Ganassi Racing. Scott Dixon behind the wheel of the 02. He's won here at Daytona before, including last year. We'll see if they can make it 2 in a row. At Daytona, GTD action happening through the International Horseshoe. The 54th Rolex 24 at Daytona. You saw the number 33 Gas Monkey Viper there with a Ferrari in pursuit. Things really heating up in that class. In fact, the 2 Vipers right there with that Ferrari in the middle. The 93, the red, white, and blue, and then right behind them, the Audi from Krone Racing. And up a little bit further, see the 73 from Park Place Motorsports to your left, and then the WeatherTech Porsche, the number 22 right there, and one of the Lamborghini Huracans behind.
Going down the grid sheet in all the classes, the depth of driving talent in every team. In years past, you might have one real super hot shoe and a couple guys that were, maybe chipping in some money. But now it's all these teams, the Park Place car, the WeatherTech car, the Conrad car, they're just stacked with talent. And it's that way in PC, it's that way in prototype, and it's that way in GT Le Mans. It's the most talented field of sports car drivers, for my money, ever assembled.
And that's the great thing about the WeatherTech series. Once again, 4 different classes, and so there's going to be competition everywhere. And one of the things that we said coming in with the new design of the GTD category, it really has closed the gap, not only between the classes, but between the pro driver and the Pro-Am driver in that class. The car is just a little bit more high-tech with ABS and traction control. But back in the prototype category, see the number 0, the Delta Wing. Catherine Legg still behind the wheel, as she has been from the drop of the green. Looking to the inside of Dane Cameron into the bus stop. Cameron says no dice.
Wow. I guess that's one advantage. There's not much nose you have to get out of there when they're chopping across. Whoa.
No dice.
And she, just shown really good pace this whole time. She's working back from that stall. Yeah, don't risk the car. And that's one thing.
Got the fastest car out there. We'll get it.
Timmy Keene talking to Catherine Legg, just saying, be patient. And you've been in a situation like that where you've got top speed, you want to get it done, and you just really kind of have to say, hang on, long way to go.
This is it's been a while since they've been. Have they ever been this strong, this far into a race? And they've led laps before and shown some speed, continuing improvement, especially since Tim Keene got there. Look at that; they look to be pretty far alongside. And now, you notice she didn't. I talked to her yesterday. She said the curbs they really need to stay away from. And one of the things you have to learn when you drive this car is to realize how much more car you have behind you than you have in front of you. So in terms of the arc, I was talking to Sean Rahal saying you got to figure out how far to leave. But because of the fragility, they really have to not drop wheels primarily in the chicane. So good job there getting out and not dropping a wheel over the curb.
I think one of the great stories in the offseason has been Mazda. You see the number 55 right now. Tristan Nunez behind the wheel, and you're a sports car fan. You followed it over the last several years. Mazda trying to develop their Sky Active diesel, and they did such a tremendous job. Whoa, that's interesting. Little swerve down towards the 50 car. Look by the 31, perhaps saying, hey, I'm not particularly happy with what you've been doing. But, we were talking about the 55 in Mazda and the development. Halfway through the season last year, they said, this isn't going to work. We're going to have to develop something. They continued to run one of the diesel power plants, pulled the other chassis out, worked on the petrol engine, and what they've come back with, Tommy, is something impressive.
And, you know, much like the Delta Wing, with a ton of effort, with not a lot of results to show for it, these guys. And now, when you get a glimpse of the front, that gives you that much more energy. All these guys are self-motivating. That whole team, really experienced guys. But when you can finally see the front of the field, it gives you some extra oomph and focus and so forth.
I'm just impressed that you take professional drivers and you kind of pull them off the pace for a couple of years. Easy to get down, easy to just kind of get complacent. None of these drivers have. They've stayed focused, and now, like you say, they've got a fire underneath them. I think this is going to be one of the racetracks where that package works really well. And talking with the team, it is an older design chassis. It doesn't have the aerodynamics that some of the new P2-based cars have. But on a place like this where they can run it low, they get advantage of the aerodynamics that they have. What they're concerned about is when they go to a rougher racetrack and they have to raise it, they get a lot of their downforce from the undertray. So when they raise the ride height, they're going to have a problem. They're going to lose some downforce. But here, they should be strong, and they have been.
We saw one of the Corvettes going around that GTD Ferrari.
There's the 62, the Risi Competizione Ferrari. You were talking earlier about the late delivery of it. Giancarlo Fisichella behind the wheel, running 8th right now, Chris.
Yeah, Brian, and Tommy was talking about the Ford GTs being brand new cars. You were saying the late delivery on that 488 Ferrari. The team finishing it up in Italy just about 2 weeks ago, getting to test it at Fiorano, and then shipping it all the way over to Miami, picking it up here on Tuesday. And I just checked in with the team. I said, how are things going for you guys? Because obviously they aren't going well for the Ford GT. And their engineer, Rick Meyer, on the box said, hey, everything going really good right now. No problems with the car. If anything, it's a little bit loose, but he's not expecting to do any changes with that car. He said the racetrack still very green from all the rain we had on Thursday, so he thinks the track is going to grip up, so not making any changes right now to that Ferrari 488.
One of the things Rick also said is with that turbocharged engine in the back, the biggest problem is if you have a problem, because the workability of it now, there's so much packaged into the back of it. He said if we lose a turbo, we're done. We're not going to be able to replace it. We can't get to them.
He says that's one of the areas that Michelotto and Ferrari, Michelotto is one who helps them with their GT cars, has been doing a much better job going from the 360 to the 430, the 458. The cars are getting, they've always been fast and competitive, but they're starting to understand more what it takes to win races, things like that, serviceability. He says they still have a little ways to go. You watch some of the other teams like the Corvette change bodywork, under trays, diffusers and stuff really quickly. That's one of the areas for them that they're a little worried about. But you think about it, is this the first turbocharged Ferrari sports racing car ever? I mean, they've had them in Formula One, but I'm not sure there's ever been a turbocharged car. So the chassis they've been building for a while, but it'll be interesting to watch this for a car with so few miles.
Google. I'm going to say you're going to have to Google that. I'm not going to answer it. Back to GT Daytona. And Vipers, you see the 33 leading the 93, the 33, that white and green gas monkey entry. And here's the difference in speed with a prototype as Scott Dixon flashes around the high side. Dixon in the lead over Jordan Taylor, Catherine Legg, Dane Cameron, and Tristan Nunez. So it's really interesting when you look at the top of the prototype category. You've got a P2 car, a Daytona prototype-based car, and then the Delta Wing. 3 very different cars in the top. And the Vipers kind of running in lockstep right now. The Aston Martin right behind.
Aston was trying to take advantage, and the Viper let the faster prototype around on the outside, and he tried to be opportunistic and get by, but got squeezed off on the exit of turn 2.
It's Paul Dallalana behind the wheel of the 98 Aston Martin. And then Christina Nielsen in the 63 Ferrari at the back of the shot. And you got to think for Christina Nielsen, coming from an Aston Martin that's in front of her right now, very different driving styles with the engine in the front versus the mid-engine of the 458 that runs in GT Daytona. So she's got to learn a different car and a different team and a different teammate, and the driving styles that she'll need. So close to winning the championship last year, looked like she had it done. And then at Petit Le Mans, it was all washed away, literally.
And that was, I mean, that was one of those things where the way that race ended early like that, it was really a little bit like musical chairs, where depending on which lap people had to stop for fuel and so forth. And one of the BMWs down on the apron.
We talked about the tried and true versus the new. It's the 25 BMW, and both of these cars, Bill Arbelin behind the wheel, both of the BMWs very fast at the roar. They've shown good speed, good reliability. a V8 twin turbo, powers the M6. I don't hear anything that.
It's thumping along. I wonder if he's got a flat right front. He's trying to keep from tearing things up.
When everything looks
not
pretty well up. It's a little low on the right front.
I think it might be maybe even a right rear.
It's hard for me to judge. I think you've got a better feel for it as far as how much you can hear if there's a lot of debris or stuff happening.
Yeah, I think it's got a flat left right front.
Oh no. Not sure, Tommy.
Right
there, it's the right rear.
The tire's still on the rim, but it's halfway out the fender, so I think you're okay at that speed. It's just very tricky.
Now, one of the things that we've seen over the years with...
This is not fun because he's going to have to get through the bus. He'll have to cross the racing line to go straight.
Well, now I'll be interested to see what they say about that. Obviously, you don't,
stay high.
You don't want him going through the bus stop because he's going to have to turn. But
they're guiding him through it.
In theory, was he supposed to stop there? I mean, obviously this lap is going to be slow. But we were told if you went off in the bus stop, you needed to come to a complete stop.
They amended that. At the driver's meeting, they said we are no longer requiring a full stop, but you cannot gain position or
he's certainly
time.
not going to gain position or time. And really, it's a safety thing. It's much safer for him to go straight through it. And looking at this package, it was very interesting. I had a chance to be over at the Team RLL shop a couple of weeks ago, and the Z4 was sitting next to the M6. And to look at them side by side, we saw the Z4 win races last year, and obviously it was a very potent package. But when you saw it sitting next to the M6, it looked like a dinosaur. All the advances that have been done to this car, and we really think about it, the Z4 been around in racing trim for several years, I think 5 years or so. Only a couple of years over here in the States, but several years prior to that in Europe. And you look at this car, there's a much more room inside of it. The ability to get in and out of the car on driver changes is much better. The ability to work on it in places is much better because you have a little more room to get in there. But it too is an interesting package. It's a twin turbo 4.4 liter V8, and the turbos are up on top of the engine, kind of in the V. So there's a lot of weight up front, and there's a lot of heat right there in the center of that hood that they've got to dissipate and get to flow around.
I'm sure there's a very good reason why they've configured it that way, but it's definitely different than in the past. And we were talking about the turbo Ferraris, and you said Google it. Well, someone Googled it and then tweeted it. And Leo Parente let me know that the F40, the F40.
Silly me. Oh, I didn't own one. Yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you, Leo. Appreciate the information. Scott Dixon, Chip Ganassi Racing out in front at Daytona. I think we've heard that before. The WeatherTech Sports Car Series in the Rolex 24 at Daytona. It's another great one. Steven Simpson been leading in the prototype challenge category, now on pit road. Routine stop for the JDC Miller team. I know Greg Kramer talked about it a little bit earlier too. This team ran so well at times last year. Simpson just a clinic at Lime Rock, and they've got a good driver lineup. Kenton Cook with the team here at Daytona, ran with JDC Miller in the prototype lights category and dominated that championship. And they've got a good driver lineup there in the 85. They could do big things in prototype challenge. Catherine Legg doing big things here since the drop of the green in the Delta Wing. Timmy Keene, his entire team working, never giving up. You know, we talked about the Mazda guys, and we alluded to it at Delta Wing as well. Not getting the results that they always want, but continuing to keep focused on making it better, and they do. And you got to be impressed.
Well, you knew when Tim Keene arrived there from Ganassi after all those championships that things were going to get better. So you can't get things sorted overnight. But one of the Achilles heel of that car was the transmission primarily, and they have a new transmission. They tried to rework it extensively. They finally had to design to build a completely new transmission, and that's what is in the car now. And they felt confident that they were better in every way, and it's showing it.
Catherine Legg feeling good behind the wheel. She's joking with her crew over the last hour or so on the radio, and it's one of those things when you're running up front and the car's running well and you're leading, you are in a good mood, aren't you? A problem for the 73, the Park Place Motorsports entry. GTD car, remember, Park Place won at Petit Le Mans, a great way to end the season, and they started on pole in GT Daytona here. Norbert Siedler qualified the 73 up front in very damp conditions.
It's Matthew McMurray in the car now.
And this is a new deal for Matt McMurray, a young driver who's driven in prototype lights. He's driven with Mike Shank in the prototype category, and now Porsche. And Porsche's a very, very different car, and it's something that you've got to wrap your head around. It takes a different driving style, obviously very different balance in that car with where the engine's placed, and Matt McMurray just kind of perhaps got caught out a little bit in the infield. There's Jordan Taylor running second. But it's almost 2 seconds between Catherine Legg and Jordan Taylor. You saw Catherine Legg flash by. There's Jordan working traffic.
It's going to be interesting to monitor how he feels. I mean, he's young, incredibly fit, but he came down with mononucleosis. And I remember when I was in high school, it seemed like everybody had it, but there was no. I said, how do you know? They're saying, well, you're just tired. Well, talking to Wayne Taylor, I learned more about it. Apparently, your spleen gets enlarged, and so they're really concerned about that. He's got a Formula One doctor here. He's got someone from the Mayo Clinic here. It's his son, in addition to his driver. And so, obviously, he's raring to go and wants to go if he can. He did say, I don't want to do one lap for points. If I can't at least do a whole stint, I don't want to drive the car. So he's obviously confident. They got checked out this morning. It'll be interesting to monitor how his stamina is and so forth.
There's not a more fierce competitor out there than Jordan Taylor or his brother or Max Angelelli, who shares the car with him. And nobody wants to win more as a team owner than Wayne Taylor. But I also know the relationship that this family has. If Jordan wasn't fit to drive, 100%. Wayne wouldn't have him in the car. Taylor with a move on one of the prototype challenge entries as he works through the bus stop, trying to give chase to Catherine Legg. But when you get to the oval portion here at Daytona, that Delta Wing just really checks out. Dane Cameron, so impressive last year with Eric Curran, their first year together in the 31 car at Action Express. Still rides in third. Tristan Nunez up to fourth, and Mark Goosens now in the 90 car in fifth.
So Jordan's keeping it interesting for sure.
Understand 7 or 8 laps from now, we'll see Catherine Legg on pit road for a routine pit stop. And I would expect at that point in time, she's going to step out of the car. She's been in it for quite a while, 2 hours and 21 minutes. So it'll be close to 3 hours by the time she gets out. 19 laps is what they've led so far today in the last 2 hours and 21 minutes. I think they led 3 laps last year, all at COTA.
And look at that Patriot paint job. God bless America, it says on the side. I asked Catherine how it was physically to drive. She said, surprisingly, the steering effort on the banking is actually it's not terrible, but it's not light either. And she was telling, when Andy Merritt came over to drive the car for the first time, she said, you know, it's got heavy steering, and he thought it was just because he's like, well, you're a girl. And so he got in the car. He said, you weren't kidding. And so it's not a huge factor, but basically, you know, with that unique configuration, there's not a lot of weight on the front wheels, so they don't have power steering. It's also got a lot of caster kind of built into it, so really you can't adjust it out of it. They just have to live with it. And they had a bigger steering wheel, but ended up not needing it.
Look at her work inside that car. You saw her hands fighting the wheel through the bumps there in the bus stop. And Catherine Legg, I'll tell you, she is a good race car driver. She's not a good female race car driver. She is a good race car driver. You put her up against everybody, anybody. Don't measure her by that. She knows how to get the job done. Take a look. Watch her hands. A little bit over the curb there. We talked about you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and the bumps do. It just pops the front wheel up in the air.
Look at that. Catherine Legg continuing to lead. We just saw the 0-2 on pit road. Scott Dixon with another spectacular drive for Chip Ganassi, Matt.
Jamie McMurray has gotten in the 0-2. Scott Dixon has gotten out. So the car looks so smooth and so consistent. If you had a challenge during your stint, what would it be?
You know, I think the target cars, you know, obviously with Claritin as well,
it seems pretty decent. Right now, the rear's a little exposed. I think if you abuse the rears too early on in the stint, it definitely hurts, and you that factors in later on. But right now, we're just trying to maintain a pace that we're happy to keep. We definitely don't have the straight-out speed. Some of those cars, you know, the Zero car, Delta Wing looks very fast, and some of the P2s. So we're going to go for the longevity, man. We know we've got a tough car here. The Ford EcoBoost is definitely going to be strong, and we'll try and maintain and see if we can stay up front.
2 wins in this event. For you, what is the most fun part of the event to be behind the wheel?
Just being in the car. I love this event for the fact of, you know, there's so many different things that are going to maybe catch you out, but you know, for me, a lot of these categories that we race in, like IndyCar and any other formula, you're not in the car that much, you know, apart from the race. And this race weekend, you're in the car a lot and doing a lot of laps. So I love coming here, and fantastic event, and obviously Rolex and everybody involved has done an amazing job.
Thank you, Scott.
So you see the 02 Jimmy McMurray, very accomplished, a winner here, and a guy that you think of in NASCAR terms, but he's done a lot of go-kart racing, a lot of road course racing. He knows how to get the job done. Corvette's in, Chris.
Yeah, right now the 3 cars slipping from 4th to 5th as it's sitting here in pit lane. Jan Magnussen started this race. He's just handing it over to his teammate all year long. Antonio Garcia going to do a little clean. Going to try and clean that windshield up before Antonio Garcia getting back on the racetrack, but that was just fuel, tires, and a driver change.
Catherine Legg with a problem in turn 1 just this last lap. The gap is closed a little bit to Jordan Taylor. The good thing is there is extra room at the exit of 1. Take a look here, Tommy. Talk us through. Look at the brakes.
Clips the inside, but gets one of the rears locked.
I was making my way towards the front on the bias. They kept getting rear-locking, and I just went too far up the front.
So a little front lockup. It pushes forward, doesn't get turned. Really kind of a lot like we saw Barbosa down in the hairpin, but obviously you got a lot of pavement in 1.
And that's one of the things about this car. The back of the car does almost all the braking because that's where all the weight is. But obviously the front does a little, and she was trying. You want to have the balance both from a wear standpoint and a speed standpoint. You want to have the balance adjusted right. 23.
Alex Job racing the heart of racing. That Porsche back underway. Great season for them last year. Won a lot of races and really kind of overshadowed their team car, the 22. But man, had a tough one here. And if you think about their championship season, it really kind of all went downhill here at Daytona. When you look back through it, Mario Farnbacher, Ian James, 18th place points here, but then 1, 2 other wins on the season. And if you could just get that back, how many people have said that? If I could just get back Daytona, if I could just get back 1 race. Back underway, a long way to go from Daytona. Only 2 hours and 26 minutes in to this 24-hour event. More to come.
GT Le Mans is where the factory teams are, the manufacturers are, and they have the best drivers, the best tires, the best teams.
Every year it seems like somehow the class gets more competitive.
If you look at the lineup of the car, it's just impressive. I think it's all the best GT driver in the world.
All different brands, I think that's awesome for the spectators to see them fighting that close.
These cars are now so sophisticated and so beautiful. It's unbelievable, and nobody knows what's going to happen.
No one knows what's going to happen, and that's why you come here year after year. The Rolex 24 at Daytona. We've seen the complexion of this race change just in the last few minutes of it, and that's the thing that's so impressive. It's why you got to race all the way that entire 24 hours. You can't give up 23 and a half in going, I got this thing, because as we saw last year in Prototype Challenge, the 54 car led the majority of the race, and then a little bit of contact with 20 minutes to go, and their potential victory went up in flames, literally.
As Marcel Fessler said, it's great for the spectators.
The spectators. Well, I think the great thing about it as well, as you see the Corvette flash by, all the different makes that are here, it really grabs everyone's attention. It doesn't matter what supercar you like, what sports car you like. There's one here for you. And if you can't find it in GTLM, you can find it in GT Daytona. There's a difference in speed
this gives you an idea, though. Not a whole lot, and the GTD cars have a lot of top end. You see that Aston running pretty much even all the way along with that GTLM car. Now the GTLM car will be better under the brakes, and that's where they need to get it done.
James Colato in the 72, the SMP Racing entry, the 488 Ferrari, giving chase to Tommy Milner in the 4. And you look back to the season that Milner and Gavin had last year, they need to pick up the pace. They need to get into the win column. It has not been an easy weekend for SMP Racing. Back in qualifying, that's turn 1, and that's a big hit.
Yep. Just not hardly scrubbing any speed. Tires are pretty friendly. I mean, obviously it knocked the wing off, and
but my big concern, and yeah, I mean, you look at the cars, they're pretty stout, and I believe it was Victor Scheitar who was behind the wheel when they had that incident. My concern is whenever I see an impact like that and there's not a lot of obvious damage to the bodywork, you don't want to be complacent and go, no, it's all right.
Yeah.
Because that axle got driven into the side of the transmission, and while it looks okay and while it might not be leaking fluid or anything else, what you see a lot of times is a gremlin that begins to raise its head 5, 6, 7 hours into the event after a big side load like that. I'm sure this team, they're very professional. They know how to get the job done running over in Europe in the different series over there. So I'm sure it's been checked, but big hit. Catherine Legg, understand she's got fuel alarms going off. Just reminding her, saying, hey, it's about time to come in. You get that alarm, one more lap, and you're in the pit lane.
Gap to second place, pretty constant, right around 1.8, 1.9 seconds back to Jordan Taylor.
488's impressive. Nobody has much time on it. We were talking about Reese getting his late, and certainly the speed has been there, but we've seen that from all the major manufacturers. There's Catherine Legg working past the Park Place Porsche, and the 10 is in. Chris?
Yeah, we can see Jordan Taylor hopping out of the 10 car, looking just fine as he's coming over the wall, passing over to his teammate Max Angelelli. P2 when he came into pit lane, going to be 4 tires and fuel on the car. He just checked in with his brother Ricky Taylor, asking how the car was. He said overall balance has been good. They're also another team that thinks the grip is going to come up as the weather cools down, and just kind of watching Jordan come into behind pit lane here. And Tommy, as you said, they've got a doctor down here. They're just trying to pay attention because he has had mono the past couple weeks, and Jordan was saying he just hasn't been able to train the way that he wanted. So they wanted to get him out of the car, take a look at him, then they were going to take him over to his RV and just do some hydration tests, make sure he's got enough fluids in his body, make sure everything is okay. But I talked to Wayne earlier, and he said we tested him this morning, we looked at everything, and Jordan really gave us a thumbs up. He said this is the best he's felt in 2 weeks.
See the 2 car with a stop. The 55 was also just in, and a great lineup in the 55. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Jonathan Bomarito, Tristan Nunez, Spencer Piggott, who will run at least 3 IndyCar races this year with Bobby Rahaal's IndyCar program. Team RLL, and a problem here. Something amiss with the right rear. Is it the suspension, or is it just body work? That what we call cheese wedge kind of down there. It's the body work.
Left stay up.
That's where he got clipped by John Pugh.
They elected not to change it. If it's not affecting the aerodynamics right now, maybe what you want to do is make sure you get that piece prepared. It can be changed relatively quickly. You want to do it during a full course caution so that you've got more time on one of those longer safety car laps. Now Catherine Legg is in. I would expect her to get out. There will indeed be a driver change. Leader pitting. I want to be the front tire changer.
That's something special. That's the only car you can do that. The driver gets out one side and in the other.
Catherine gets out. Looks.
The engine got switched off.
Nice and fresh. You hear him say the engine got switched off. They'll have to restart it. So impressed with Catherine Legg. Impressed with her in her IndyCar days, her Atlantic days. She can drive a race car. And right now, Timmy Keene got to be feeling good about what they've done. He'll feel a lot better in 21.5 hours.
Another stall. So it might be a clutch take-up issue.
Put the battery in or something. Come on.
It's one of those deals. There is a process that they have to use to get that started. And Catherine had said on that one stall that she had that it was her fault. She messed something up on the start. So Delta Wing heads back out. Meanwhile, we saw the 10 car come into pit lane. Jordan Taylor climbed out. He's with Chris Neville.
And Brian, when Jordan took his helmet off, he immediately had a big smile on his face, getting thumbs up from your brother, a little fist pound there. You got some doctors from Formula Medicine here. They were giving you a thumbs up. Most importantly, how do you feel?
Yeah, I feel fine. I mean, I didn't really drive much in practice just to kind of save myself for the race, so we didn't know what to expect when I got in the car, but I felt perfectly fine. I didn't think about it at all when I was in the car, so I felt fine. The car's running strong, I think. Compared to kind of cars similar to us, we're competitive. There's a couple cars that are a lot faster, so we just got to run our own race, and hopefully we'll be there at the end.
Now, you and your brother train a ton. You said feeling not well the past few weeks. You haven't been able to train the way that you typically do. How well do you think you're going to recover now?
No, I feel fine. I mean, Daytona's not the most physical track, but you're right. I've been lying down for about 2 weeks, so it was a bit of a shocker out there. But I feel fine. The doctors are here to get me some nutrition to get me back going, and the Mambas are here to win.
All right, go get some rest.
I've been laying around for the last 2 weeks too. Had nothing to do with feeling under the weather. The 4-car in and out. 62 Risi Competizione Ferrari is in. The car absolutely beautiful. One of the things you notice on these GTLM cars, the aerodynamics considerably different than they were in the past. The under tray with the splitters on them add tremendously to the downforce that the cars generate. It's been estimated as much as 15 to a little over 20% of the downforce. And my question is, did I see the 72 hit an air hose on the way out? Did he run over that?
I saw the gun jump. Whether that was because the guy stepped on it or he ran over it, I guess we'll find out.
GTLM pit stops for many of the leaders underway, and they'll head back out. Jamie McMurray now out in front here at Daytona in the 02 for Chip Ganassi Racing. See the Ferris wheel, sun beginning to sink down on the horizon just a little bit. Problems we saw earlier in the event for the number 5 with Joao Barbosa behind the wheel. 5-car doing all right now, Matt?
Barbosa's out of the car. Christian Fittipaldi's gotten in. So, Joao, walk us through what happened with the spin.
I mean, it was, you know, the tires were cold after restart. I tried to go around the outside of GT car. It was very tight, and I don't think he saw me on the outside there. And, you know, it's just I had no grip to make the corner. Luckily, it was a really low-speed corner. I bumped the tires a little bit, but there's no damage to the car, so we can continue. Lost quite a bit of time, but I know I should have known better at this time. You know, it's still a long way to go, but I'm not very happy with what I did right there. But you know, we have a great car, great team behind us, and I think we still a long way to go.
When you look at the conditions and how the car was before the spin, were you pleased with the handling?
It's very tricky out there. We had absolutely no practice because it was raining the last couple of days, so the car is not really where we want it to be, but I think it's quite competitive to be running right now strong in the top 5. So we'll see tomorrow. The track, I'm sure, is going to change, going to have more rubber as the race progresses. So I'm pretty confident we'll have a good car when it matters.
Thank you. The 2014 winner of this event, chasing another.
Yeah, well, those are words of a champion. Hey, I made a mistake.
Yep.
You know, own up to it, and all of us have done things we'd like to have back, and that's one of them. See the 02 out in front, but he made a very interesting point. You're not just chasing the car, you're going to chase the racetrack for the entire 24 hours because very little rubber down, and it is going to change lap after lap, hour by hour, all the way to the checkered flag.
And that was one of those things. I think he was running P3 at the time, but I was thinking it, and I didn't get a chance to say it, but Dixon was out front in clear air, got clear of the 2 PC cars. Second place was Taylor, and he was in third, and they were stuck behind a ton of cars. So, you know, your instinct is like, I got to get clear of these guys before I lose too much time. Obviously, at this point in the race, it didn't really matter that much, but it's easy, you know, that's what you're programmed to do is go forward.
Well, we talked about Jamie McMurray being a very accomplished road racer. He's out in front right now, 141 the last time by, and a problem for the 26 car. That was one of the front runners in Prototype Challenge, qualified third in the hands of Ryan Eversley, and now a problem for it down in the pits. Out of Bar 1 Motorsports, 2 cars out of that stable for this weekend. The other car started on pole, so this is not what they wanted to see. They did get a penalty. They had a drive-through penalty that they were going to need to serve, but they didn't get it served. They had to come to their pit box. Now, if they get this problem fixed, they get back out, they'll have to come back in and serve that penalty. Leading in the prototype challenge category is the 85 right there, that bright yellow entry from JDC Miller Motorsports. And we talked about Steven Simpson earlier, a very, very talented driver from South Africa originally, and been very impressive both in the prototype challenge category and in the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge Series when he runs there. Be good to see him in the car a bit more this year, and I understand we may actually do that. Very likable fellow, very, very quick.
Got about 40 seconds on second place. Sean Johnston, young American driver that's been over in Europe running some Porsche Junior stuff. I first became aware of him on the GT Academy Gran Turismo show. He won a shot in a race car by video gaming, got his first run, finished just second in that competition, but you know, decided he wanted to commit his life to pursuing motorsports, got on with the Porsche guys, and now he's in a PC car for the first time, running for Starworks, running in second position.
So Simpson across the line one more time, and just in front of him is that Tommy Dreese. It is the Zoolander car, and they have had some crazy outfits on all weekend long. It's Robert Allen in the car, the 52.
Probably got the blue steel look going right now behind the helmet.
Through the infield. And the thing you got to keep in mind about these cars, as a GTLM driver, maybe you're hoping that the prototype challenge guys are going to help rubber up the track. Really, when you think about it, it's the only class out there that doesn't have traction control, and then these cool temperatures, trying to get over 450 horsepower to the ground is going to be a challenge. So don't be surprised to see some long black marks out behind prototype challenge entries as they come off of these low speed hairpins. There's the 52. That's from the PR1 Matheson stables, and that's the car that has Robert Allen behind the wheel. Winners of this event last year, and you look at the season that they had last year. Bobby Orgel's team, they won here, they won at Sebring, they won at Petit Le Mans. They seem to be endurance specialists, and the 88 right behind them. Well, that's the story in Prototype Challenge right now, but we had all kinds of stories coming into this weekend. One of them was the debut of the Ford GT. It hadn't gone particularly as planned. Chris?
Yeah, and Brian, it was Joey Hand who took the green flag on the number 66 car earlier today. And that last pit stop, you hopped out. Now, you were behind the wheel. We had the brake issue here in pit lane. And then when you went back out on track, you had some electrical issues. What was going on with that car?
I'm not really sure. We don't know what the electrical issue was, but we hit a brake fitting right here with the wheel going in. That I could feel. I was holding the brake and the pedals with the floor. So I told him on the way, something happened. Went out, did a half a lap, and some electronics problem, and we couldn't get it fired back up. Cycled the mains, and then it worked all of a sudden. So now it's working fine. I mean, for me, I'm just proud to be part of this program. Ford, Chip Ganassi Racing. I was one of the first guys to take the green flag in this new Ford GT. It was awesome. I think we led a couple laps. I mean, it's been a pretty cool deal. Car's not bad. It's working really good.
Just so you know, right now we're watching it and it's slow on track, and we can see some action here behind you, so let's see what's going on.
More teething problems, it seems like, for the Ford GT. It was the gremlins in the 67 that we saw first.
First gear, tried emergency, nothing is changing. I tried to clutch, I tried everything, not happening.
Could it be the same gearbox issue that we saw on the 67?
We think we know what it is.
You hear the team say, we think we know what it is, and Sebastian Bourdais is going to have to limp around the Speedway back to pit lane and try to get repairs done. And it's just not the debut that you wanted. You have the speed. Obviously, you have the interest from the motorsports community and all the fans that are out there, but you'd like to see a lot of these gremlins not raise their heads, that's for sure. But meanwhile, in GTLM, the Porsches have been running very, very strong. Kevin Estra right now in his first season as a Porsche factory driver, running third in the 911. For more from Porsche, here's Matt.
Straight to the garage, straight to the garage.
And when you look at Porsche North America, it's such a rich racing history, not only in this event, but also across the country. And that passion carries over to the road cars and their customers. And Andre Itrezin, VP of Marketing, talk a little bit about what you guys do for your customers, especially with the Porsche Experience Center.
Well, we're very excited to open towards the middle of last year the first Porsche Experience Center of its kind in the US. We refer to it as a driver's demonstration track. It's a lovely avenue where we can simulate on-road live conditions, but also hazardous and slippery conditions. So you get behind the wheel of a mid-engine or the rear-engine 911 or the four-door models, and you really get to experience the cars in its natural habitat and environment. Dynamic conditions, a little bit of induced over and understeer, and you get to learn very much in a controlled, very safe environment. So you get to know the brand, also an immersive experience with the heritage, the museum, the DNA, and learn a lot about motorsports, which is the reason we are out here today.
And how does that compare with your driving school in Alabama?
Very good question. The driving school is a Formula One certified racetrack, higher speeds, your instructions at a slightly higher level there. It starts off with a full-day program and goes up to a 3-day master's program. So you really learn a lot more about car control, higher speeds, and also tuition up to a level where you can qualify for your racing license.
Can you describe for yourself just the excitement here, looking at the fans in the stands, driving through, looking at just the Ferris wheel, all the fans in the infield. This is certainly so much excitement just carrying over.
It is truly phenomenal. You know, the year's just been teed up quite superbly. We came off a high in 2015, returning today, having Ford join the fray in the GT Le Mans class. Fantastic. You can see the fan base out there, but Porsche, we're an enthusiast, enduring brand, and now Porsche Platz, our Corolla was sold out about 2 months ago. Great fans, we can engage with them. Many people in the grandstand, and the new Daytona Stadium looks absolutely fantastic. So we're thrilled to be here, and a wonderful kickstart to the season.
Thank you, Andre.
Excellent, thank you.
The only thing that could make it better would be a win, and really they want to kind of forget about what happened last year. I was talking to Morgan Brady, who's the team manager, but the rear wing
Look at the rear
shaking
wing.
a lot.
That's what I was going to say.
But I talked to him yesterday, and we were talking about last year, and he just said, you know what? We watched that video at the annual dinner that Porsche has over in Germany. We watched it 4 or 5 weeks ago when we were there, and we've put it away. We're not going to watch it again. We know what went wrong. And it wasn't really as bad as it looked. It wasn't really too much of over-aggressive. But the fact of the matter is, team cars got together, and it cost them a victory here. They came on strong at the end of the season.
It was as bad. It was as bad as
nah, I didn't think it was as bad as it looked. But they took the Manufacturers' Championship, and they took the Drivers' Championship, and kind of made up for it a little bit. But certainly wasn't the way you wanted to come through this event. And they said we put that out of our mind.
The fact that they showed that at the review banquet, given the year they had last year, they rebounded from that, won the title.
Would they have showed it if
won
they
Le Mans overall with the LMP1 car? They had an unbelievable year, so I guess maybe that's why they felt comfortable
they could show it,
yeah.
But then they, as they said, they have put it away, not to be seen again.
That rear wing thing,
it's interesting. You can't do that for another 20 plus hours, 22 hours, 21 hours. So this was last year, all right. Well, now that looks bad right there. You didn't see the whole thing. I mean, obviously.
Well, what you're saying is it wasn't blatant.
It was, yes, it wasn't blatant. That's what I meant. It was bad.
It was
yes,
bad.
okay.
When the two factory cars,
no. It's,
now what happened is he was on the outside.
It's not what you say; it's how you say it.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
But he was on the outside of that Aston, and he got shoved off the edge of the outside of the kink, and now he's in the grass and no way to stop. He knew he was going to crash about 5 seconds before he crashed.
And exactly. He just didn't know who he was going to hit. They'll put that behind him, and right now, Porsche looking to get to the front. They want to start this season off where they left off last year, and they want to do it by winning the Rolex 24 at Daytona.
We're here here at the brand new and impressive Daytona Rising, kicking off IMSA's 2016 GTLM Race Series. What's new on the Corvette C7R for this season? We'll start down here with our brand new, much improved and larger diffuser, designed to increase the airflow underneath the car, reducing the air pressure under, increasing the air pressure over, improving overall aerodynamics and downforce. We then move up to our brand new wing. That wing's been moved back, obviously increasing the leverage, increasing the rear downforce on the car. As we move from there, you can come down to the side of the car. Our brand new side skirts, enlarged. Again, aerodynamic improvements, helping that car hug to the roadway, increasing cornering speeds while reducing drag. And we finish up at the front. Obviously, to balance that new rear wing, we have a brand new front splitter, increased in size. That balances out the rear pressure to the front pressure. Once again, improving downforce, reducing drag. All these things are going to add to significantly improved lap times for the Corvette C7R, as well as the other cars competing in this series. And believe me, this year is going to be some of the greatest competition America has ever witnessed.
Well, there was a lot of head scratching because at the Roar, the lap times weren't better than they were last year, and there was a lot of it put off too well. We've got more downforce, therefore we don't have the straight line speed that we've had in years past. And then somebody said, well, it's not really that. It's just that they're all sandbagging. Nobody wants to really show what it is that they've got because the aerodynamic packages have changed substantially. But it does make sense. If you're creating 20% more downforce, let's say, in round numbers, and pushing that car down on the ground, if you don't have any more horsepower, you're going to have a hard time getting the same top speed out of it.
And that's one of the challenges with getting the balance of performance settings right is you got to have guys running hard. And as I've said before on this, the reason people sandbag is because it works. And so, but they have a penalty in the book, this nuclear option penalty they've never issued, which is if they feel like you were sandbagging too much and break out on speed, either from the Roar or from qualifying, a 5-minute stop and go penalty. And they've never issued it, and no one wants to issue it. The stakes and the money being spent in the manufacturers. But you got new turbocharged cars, you got all these new cars, you got new aero packages. Apparently, they have the ability to collect data in their own walled-off system. And they said that they came to all the teams afterwards and says, you're all doing it, and we're watching, and you need to knock it off. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops.
And when you say all means at the Roar, 53 of the cars that ran supposedly had some type of omission, I should say, of data that where they were actually turning a faster lap, and they somehow managed to manipulate the data or the lap times by lifting off. And
you can find out where they're doing it. If you want to know where BMW is doing it, you go ask Corvette. If you want to know where Corvette was doing it, you go ask Porsche.
Well, you had a very valid point. When you talk about that, you said you talked to Dan Binks, and he was talking about the straight line speed of the BMWs or one of the other manufacturers. They monitor them during the race.
Yeah.
They know exactly who's doing what, when, and where. Right now, battle in GTD. Up top on the left, Brian Sellers in the 48 from Paul Miller Racing, the Huracan. It's going to take me a while to get used to not seeing Brian in that turquoise number 17 Porsche with Team Falcon Tire on the side of it. So many years spent there at that program, and they had great success, especially in some of the rain drives. But Brian Sellers has found a home here for the season with Paul Miller Racing, and having a ball driving this Huracan. Who wouldn't?
Yeah, and he's really excited about this car. It just shows you the strength of this brand, a brand new brand to this GT3 type racing in America, and there's 5 of them on the grid already. And it's funny, I actually talked to Bryce's father, Paul Miller, and his uncle, Kemper Miller. I didn't realize from Trans Am racing back in the 80s, I didn't realize that they were brothers. Kemper used to run the Red Lobster BMW M1 that my dad used to battle with Dennis Ossie, and then Paul Miller ran that turbo Porsche in Trans Am. So he was here, but Bryce is more in a management position for most of the year, but he steps in as in an endurance role for the 4 long races.
Time for Jamie McMurray, easy for me to say, to come into the pit lane. This 0-2 running flawlessly so far, but that's what you got to do at this stage of the race, isn't it, Tommy? You go out there, you turn your lap times in. It's become less of a pace race and more of an outright sprint race over the years. But Ganassi knows exactly what they need to do. It looks like 4 new Continental tires. McMurray will stay in the car, and then they'll head back out. That's all you want to do all day, all night long, right there. Fuel and tires, fuel and tires.
Yeah, and Ganassi makes it look easy. It's obviously not, but you think about everything that Chip Ganassi has going on. And I overheard him saying the other day, someone was asking about his programs. He said he had to write them down. It took him a while to get them all together because he's got the Indy cars, he's got the NASCAR, he's got the DP program, he's got the new Ford GT, he's got Global Rallycross, and all of them are competitive.
Speaking of competitive, as McMurray heads back on track in the 0-2, your leader now, the 31, Dane Cameron. So interesting, such a great young man, so incredibly quick. I was talking to Simon Pagenaud at the Roar, and Pagenaud is obviously a very well-known driver, very successful, and a guy that I've rated for a long, long time. And I said, so how do you rate Dane? I mean, I think he's a fast young driver, and he looked at me and he said he needs to be a factory driver. They need to get him a factory ride somewhere. He is just that good, and he proved it last year. That took the battle, I think maybe surprisingly for the Action Express team, straight to the 5 car and wasn't going to have anything to do with playing second fiddle. I remember at Road America, there was a coming together, and Dane got on the radio and called back to the pits and said, I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with this. I want to race fair and clean. And he was spectacular last year. They had some victories, and he and Eric Curran, I think, opened a lot of people's eyes. Through the tribal right behind the 10, Max Angelelli now behind the wheel of the 10 for Wayne Taylor. It's interesting, you know, a lot of people thought the P2 car would dominate, but we've seen some problems, some mistakes on their part. Obviously, cycling through with pit stops, the 55 running third, but the Daytona prototypes showing that they still have the legs. Remember, this is going to be the last year that you see a Daytona prototype-based prototype run here in the series. There's a new prototype coming in 2017. Be interesting to see if one can get to victory lane at the end of 24 hours and end the era with a victory.
When you look at the full-time professional teams that have all professional driving rosters, and more of them are in the DP platforms than in most of the LMP2 platforms, have a gentleman, at least one gentleman driver in them. Now, actually, I wanted to give a shout out in the last stint. We saw John Pugh get into the back of Johannes van Overbeek. But once he got it gathered up, I think he was so intent on trying to keep pace with Van Overbeek, and he did exactly that. Once they settled down after the accident, over the course of that stint, he only lost 9 seconds to Van Overbeek. And so, you know, here's a guy, as we watched the pit stop, the 25 BMW, the one that we saw limp around with that flat right rear, that one looked pretty routine.
Oberlin's still in it as he heads back out, so it'll be tires, Michelin tires on the GTLM cars as Oberlin heads back out. One of the interesting things that I noted about that car from the cockpit side of things is that they've really kind of moved the driver a little bit further over to the right. One of the things Corvette has done for a long, long time is really think about driver safety, and that is a concern with the BMW too. They've moved him to the center, and that certainly helps. Let's go to Chris Neville back in the garage. That's not where you're supposed to be, Chris.
No, it's not where you're supposed to be, but it is where quite a few Ganassi crew members are. And you can see the 66 sitting here in the garage, Sebastian Bourdais still behind the wheel. And the issue that he brought it back to the garage area is because it was stuck in gear, a lot like what we saw with the 67 car earlier. But they did change the actuators in the 67 car, those pneumatic actuators that make it change gears, go up and down through the gears. That fixed that car. They did that with this car, and it didn't fix this car. Right now, this car stuck in reverse. The team working on electronics. They've changed those pneumatic actuators. They're rocking the wheels back and forth, trying to get it to go through gears, but right now, no fixes on the 66 car. Matt?
And catching up with Graham Rahal, the 100 car, currently P4 in class. And we're getting close to the Graham Rahal hour. The sun is beginning to set. Why do you love racing so much at night?
I don't know, you know, it's something peaceful about it. You go out there and, you know, I would say at this time, well, obviously the race started later this year, but, you know, at this hour, you start to get a lot of the, you know, filter through, get a little attrition going, some of the cars falling out. But there's something nice about getting out there, getting into a rhythm at nighttime, pounding out a lot of laps. And obviously my job as the third or fourth wheel in this deal is to hand it off to Lucas or John to finish in the best possible condition that I can. So, you know, I'm really letting those guys sleep, get a lot of rest. So the next 10 hours are going to be pretty busy for me, but I'm looking forward to it.
Now you're about 6'4", 6'5". Besides the cockpit being a little bit bigger, a little bit more comfortable, what's the biggest difference for the fan at home between last year's car and this year's car?
Well, it's interesting because the M6 is obviously a lot bigger than the Z4. So, you know, room-wise, it's better. Is it that roomy? No, I wouldn't say it's American-sized yet, but it's getting closer. You know, but from the other perspective, it brakes a lot better. I would say the power band of the engine is really cool, the V8 twin turbo. Doesn't have a lot of top speed, as you can see, for those watching. You know, we struggle there, but in all the twisty bits, it's pretty good. And the aerodynamics of the car, with the new regulations, you can definitely feel a bit more aero grip out of this car versus the Z4, which is nice. And it seems to be very consistent on the tires, really good over the whole stint. Being able to double stint tires, so you know, hopefully it all works out for us. The biggest thing is going to be reliability in this race. Clearly, we're not going to be the fastest car, but if we can be consistent, reliable, hopefully it'll work out for us.
Does it make you appreciate, as the years go by, your win overall in this event 5 years ago?
Yeah, you know, it was cool to win here in a BMW 5 years ago with Ganassi, but it mean a lot more this time around. I'd say at that point it kind of came a little bit easy. As I was telling you the other day, you know, it was the next year, 2012, I drove 11.5 hours of this thing on my own, and that year was brutal. And we got to the last hour, and the gearbox broke with Pruitt in the car. And to go from finishing on the podium to not finishing at all was really, really tough for me. And you know, so it'd feel good to get another win. But you know, this is such an iconic event with Indy and everything else. This would be a great one to get a second win.
Thank you, Graham.
Thanks.
You see Dane Cameron trying to hold off Max Angelelli. You understand he was talking about retirements. The 70 is out. The number 11, Townsend Bell, with a problem back in the garage. The field thinning out, but the competition still heating up at Daytona. Beautiful thin cloud cover here in Daytona Beach, Florida. Daytona International Speedway for the Rolex 24. Sunset, cooler temperatures, and that means the lights come on the Ferris wheel, and that's where Tommy's going during our break, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I saw. Let's watch this battle between Cameron.
Oh, problem for the 88.
Oh, left front is. He's obviously hit
there's
something hard and
damage.
it's frozen. Seized.
Well, it looks like suspension damage. It's not just the wheel. It looks.
Yeah, he hit something
way
hard
too
in the
cambered.
front,
Yeah,
pushed it back, and that's a shame.
One of the Star Works entries, and understand that he may have made contact on the way out of pit lane. Typically, that contact is usually driver's right, far left, top right. Here he comes out of the pits. So he got loose, and the car began to fishtail, and then went back across the racetrack and clouded it left front into the Armico.
When we were on board riding with the car leaving the pit lane, I was going to say that one of the things that is so treacherous here, and it'll be even worse when it gets cold at night, is that pit exit is really slippery.
Well, and this is a driver who's certainly a young driver, but very experienced. Sean Johnston ran in Porsche Carrera Cup, VLN last year, Blancpain Endurance, Carrera Cup. Really the last couple of years we've seen him over here, IMSA GT3 Cup. Very talented driver, very intelligent young driver. And it just goes to show you, it's so easy. Calvin talked about it at the very beginning of the show. So easy to make a mistake with that pit out. And we were talking about no traction control on this car, and you light up those rear tires, and you got a pretty narrow channel to try to get it back under control.
Oh man, that's tough. Being the young guy in the car and letting everybody down. That's one of the Star Wars cars.
I think even Jeff Gordon clouded the wall when he drove here on his way out. Matt?
They were actually asking him to please slow down. You're going too fast with these conditions. They've also told him, just bring it back. Don't come to pit road. Take it right back to the garage to the truck.
Peter Barron has run here, the team owner for Star Works, run here 17 times. And he said, hey, we've got a great lineup in our two cars this year. We've got a really, really good chance, and this isn't getting any better. Sparks getting worse. I would think that the left front should probably have kind of eaten all the way through the rubber, maybe into the inside of that wheel. But he really felt like they had a great shot at it this year. Now Sean Johnston trying to get out of the way and impeding the progress of some other cars on the way into the pits, and he heads back to the garage. Peter's not going to be happy about this, but this is the great battle for the lead. It's the 31 Dane Cameron out in front, and it's kind of yo-yoed back and forth with Max Angelelli. Angelelli's there again, Tommy.
Yeah, and what I was about to say before we cut away to that Johnston Star Wars car is Max, where he's really strong, is under the brakes in turn one. He's been making up a good bit of nice little chunk of speed. And remember, Max is not in the full-time role anymore, but he just thrives here at Daytona. And I mean, incredibly proud and happy to contribute to the deal. Obviously, he was gracious in handing over to the two Taylor brothers could run together so well, but he likes to be a meaningful part of this team in the long distance races.
Well, he's a part of the family. I mean, in a sense, Wayne and Max have been good friends and business associates for a long, long time.
Watch into one here. Watch see if Max can make up the ground he was.
Into the heavy braking zone for one. Dane Cameron on the right, and Angelelli really closes in.
Look at that. You notice he's not even getting there. The road is cambered away on the outside. You get a much better radius through the corner, but you lose some grip on camber. So he's keeping it tighter than anybody else into one.
And Dane got some of it back coming off the corner, but not all of it back. And I think you're right. That's really seems to be where Angelelli has the advantage, is at least in turn one. Right now, traffic through the kink. So this is going to mess things up a little bit, but you know, for the boys, for Ricky and Jordan, Angelelli has really been kind of a hero to them as they grew up and watched him race, and he's mentored them along the way through the different series that they've run, mentored them once they got into the prototypes. Kind of a bittersweet deal to step out of the car for two kids that you truly love and that you've mentored along the way, and yet he has done just that. The battle for third, Jonathan Bomarito in the Mazda on screen left, and Andy Merrick behind the wheel of the Delta Wing. Catherine Legg so strong in Delta Wing early on. Now it's Merrick's turn. Compare the top speeds down to the bus stop. Maybe not this time. Too much traffic in the way. Bomarito trying to get past the Porsche in front.
Big
Andy
slide.
Merrick laying back, seeing if he can get a run. Good battles up front in prototype from Daytona International Speedway. There's a look at your class leaders.